Welcome. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on social media at MMALOTN. Joined as always by my guy Cody Saftik, and you guys can follow him over there on Twitter at CJ Saftik. And Cody, it is big fight week. It's always super special when there's a giant pay-per-view at the ending of the week, especially when it's a card that we have to go through every single 14 freaking fights that we got, but a lot of them. A lot of bangers, right? A lot of people are comparing this card to the last pay-per-view, UFC 280, which is a big card as well. And I was just like, hey, this might be the better card from beginning to end as a whole, right? The main card of UFC 280, I don't think it's going to be easy to top that one. But as a whole, preliminaries included, I think that this is a very solid offering as well. What's your excitement level for the card this weekend?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's three amazing fights. Listen, Alex Pereira in the main event against Israel Adesanya. Who doesn't want to see that? Of course, it's a striker's delight. Hopefully, Izzy's known for these stinker-type performances, but I think this is going to be a hard fight to have a stinker-type of performance. Carlos Esparza versus Zhang Weili. Yeah, I don't know what the interest level is there, but I think it's going to be a good fight. Personally, I think it's going to be a stoppage victory for Zhang Weili. She'll have another one of these big, solid coming out party type performances to recapture the title. And then you're not actually a fight fan unless you're into Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler. I mean, if you're not into that, just turn it off right now, man. What are you doing? But the rest of the card after that kind of sharply falls off. The prelims are, listen, it's all good fights, right? But it's the same thing week to week. Like, they have three really good fights that have everyone's interest. You put them on the pay-per-view, you sell some pay-per-views. Beyond that, you've got to be a fight fan. But of course, you and I are hardcore fight fans, so little things get us extra excited. A guy like Frankie Edgar, a legend of the sport. Renato Moicano versus Brad Riddell could be a low-key banger. Dominic Reyes arguably beat John Jones. Otman Azaitar, what was in the bag, man?
Potatoes, Cody. Potatoes. Did you hear?
Listen, all I'm saying is, like, there's stuff that you could get excited for sure. Last week's episode, listen, we tried our best. I tried my best. Came up way on the losing end of it. Didn't see things going down. Even like the upsets, that's like, okay, I could see the upset. The method of victory was really killing me. So this time I want to shore things up. We got 14 fights, a lot of good spots, and a lot of these low-key good plus money spots. I think we could hit a few of them, come out profitable.
I love it. I love that approach as well. Quick question here from one of the guys in the chat. I thought I might as well shift on over to you, Cody. Just get your quick plug in for the next card that's coming up next week that you're matchmaking for. But my guy Mitchell Davies here asking, how's the matchmaking going, Cody? I see you got Charles Jourdain's brother. Is he going to do some flan shit too? Anything you can tell us about next week's card for the viewers and anybody that wants to purchase tickets and obviously be there as well?
Yeah, well, honestly, man, if you want to purchase a ticket, come on down. But if you want to just hit me up or hit Manpreet up, you want to attend the event, you want to come out, I'll hook you guys up. You guys spend your Thursday, basically every Thursday, over here as loyal fans of the show. So, again, if I could have you out, just hit Manpreet up, and I think that's something I could definitely facilitate. But card's going pretty good. We got 6 good fights locked in. We got Caveman Sam doing a greasy hot dog eating contest. Hey. You don't know who Caveman Sam is. It's from Trailer Park Boy fame. He's the Sam Losco, the veterinarian. Yeah, of course, the greasy caveman. So, like, it'll be a good night of entertainment. First fight starts at 7. Main event should go off by 10. So not like one of these, like, super late things. And, of course, people are like, well, Thursday's a weekday. It's like, Thursday's a drinking day, man. Believe me. I was young one time and didn't have a child. Thursday's the day you go out because you can limp through work on Friday knowing like, half the guys aren't here. Bosses don't care if we cut out early. It's an easy day, and you got something to look forward to. So, in terms of Louis Jourdain, I think he's a super prospect. I think he at one point would have been considered the number 1 prospect in Canada. Smashes Tony Laramie. Flashy striker, looks good, but you could see his grappling game just wasn't all that. No offense to Charles Jourdain. It's kind of his kryptonite as well. Louis even more so. So he dropped a couple fights that he probably should have won, just getting his back taken and getting rear naked choke. Kid decides, you know what? Fuck this, I'm just going to go to pro boxing. And boxed a little bit, ended up going 3-1 as a pro boxer, but sees Charles in the UFC, sees Charles getting the spotlight, getting the money, getting the women, because goddamn, Charles Jourdain's Instagram's fire. I think that motivates him to be like, you know what, I got to get back into MMA. So he's training hard. This is actually a catch weight of 130, so it's the lowest that he's ever fought. But I think their plans are maybe to try to get him to 25. And 100% contender series would tell a kid like that, 2 or 3 wins, 2 wins, and we'll give you a slot on contender series. So I think it's all about testing the weight cut, testing the new grappling skills. He is fighting Gabe Sagman, BJJ black belt, grindy type fighter. So if he can get past that, it would be a step in the right direction. But I think the kid's super talented. And I'd like to book him again right after this fight. Like, don't know how it's going to go. But if he wins and he wants, I got to fight for him on a 10-week turnaround. I got like a big high profile fight for him that's like reasonable, but then that will get him to the show because it's high profile. UFC's already looking at him. So I'm super excited for it. We got Tarek Ishmael main event against Walel Gazelle Watson, UFC veteran, went the distance with TJ Dillashaw, went the distance with TJ Dillashaw, who actually had 2 functioning clavicles, right? So, it's way easier to fight when you've got 2 active shoulders going in. And, yeah, it's going to be a dope time. So I'd also like to meet you in person. If you're in the area and you want to swing on by, let me know, man. We'll get together.
There you guys go. If anybody's in the Toronto area, make sure you guys show up and show out for that card because it should be a fun time. I will more than likely be there as well because whenever there's local MMA, I just want to see some guys punch each other in the face rather than through a TV screen. So hope to see you guys there. All right, Cody, we got 14 fights to get through. Let's not dilly-dally any further. Let's get into the first fight of the night. It's going to be in the light heavyweight division, and it goes down between Nego Mariano going up against Carlos Alberg. And in terms of odds, we got the favorite here, obviously from the City Kickboxing crew, Carlos Alberg coming in at -130, +110 the return on Nego Mariano. Now, fun, interesting fight to kick off the card here, right? Big boys throwing down. Like I said, City Kickboxing kicking off the card and obviously ending the card as well with Israel Adesanya, not to mention a couple guys sprinkled in the middle of that as well. And so you'd hope that they can go out there and actually have a big performance here. Carlos Alberg will obviously be the better technical striker here because that's the base that he brought into the MMA game when he made the switcheroo. But he's going to be dealing with a very tough and durable individual in Nego Mariano, who will come forward, make him uncomfortable, put him into bad clinch positions, maybe look for a couple of takedowns as well, but it's going to be difficult to get Nikolai out of there. Carlos is going to need a similar fight to that Fabio Sharon fight he had, where he's playing it safe at distance, touching him up from distance, using his leg kicks to kind of keep him at range. Obviously, we see here on the graphic, he's actually going to be at a 1 inch reach disadvantage, but he has a 4-inch height advantage, and I expect a lot of that to be asserted with the kicks that he's going to be throwing out there. However, I seem to still come out on the Nikolai side. And, me 2 years ago would be like, dude, what are you thinking? This guy has a loss to Saperbeg Safarov. But it's, he's done a damn good job since that fight in terms of reclaiming some of the respect that he lost after that loss. Again, skill-wise, yes, Alberg is a better guy here, but I think that Nikolai can make him uncomfortable, put him into those positions, similar to what Kennedy and Nzechukwu was able to do in Carlos Alberg's UFC debut. I like the underdog price on him. I didn't mind the +105 when it was even there, but from a prop perspective, I think the best way to go about this is 2 ways. The over 2.5 sits at +140. The over 1.5 -160. Not a bad line considering how tepid of a pace I expect this fight to be. Fight goes to decision +165. And then obviously, as you guys can tell from my breakdown, I'm going to be siding with the Nego Mariano side of things. And you can get him to win via decision anywhere between +400 and +500. Give me the grit and durability here of Nego Mariano. What are you thinking here, Cody?
I think Nego Mariano's got the grit, the durability, the ability to go the 15 minutes and then lose, and then I can cash a +300 ticket on Alberg by decision. So that's how I went. Yeah, you mentioned the Safarov fight. I won't bring that up because, well, I'm bringing it up, but I won't fault him for it because he took a fight, UFC debut. He's 24 years old. He takes over 2 years off after that, reintroduces himself into the UFC, and as you mentioned, 4-fight winning streak. The thing is, that 4-fight winning streak could easily be a 2-2 run in the octagon as well. I did not think he won the fight with Alexa Kmore. He got severely outstriked in the first round. Second round, Kmore starts to tire, probably still edges it. And then Nego Mariano, again, he's tough, he's durable, and he keeps coming, right? So he's able to kind of break through and grease out a split decision. His own fight with Kennedy Nzechukwu, much of the same. He's getting outstruck. He's getting behind on the numbers. He greases out a split decision that I personally did not agree with. And then his last time out against that Ihor Potera guy, come on. People are saying that he was like falsifying his record. And I don't know, it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is Nego Mariano does operate at a fairly low level. Sure, he's tough. Sure, he's rugged. Sure, he comes forward. But he's generally behind on the punching numbers. He's generally in these greasy, tight, close decisions. And even though he's been winning them, and you might be able to edge me out on another one here, I'm just not overly impressed. Now, Carlos Alberg comes to the UFC, and he's got all the spotlight in the world for him. He's like, he was on like The Bachelor New Zealand or something. Good looking guy, male model. He's Israel Adesanya's buddy. He's got this kickboxing prowess. They literally gave him like a book. Well, it was a roster of guys, and they were like, pick whoever you want. And he picked Kennedy Nzechukwu. And for the first round, for the first 3.5 minutes of the first round, This guy couldn't do no harm. He landed like 86 significant strikes in the first round alone. But that's the problem. You're young, you're inexperienced. It's the UFC debut. You see the bright lights, you hear the crowd. I feel like the emotions and the jitters totally did get to him. And he fought a crazy first round. Hell, even in the second round, he's gassed out. He still lands 64 significant strikes. It was super high volume, gasses out, gets TKO'd. Now you bring up the Fabio Sharon fight. That was important because it's the very next fight after Kennedy. So he had gassed out. He gets his UFC debut out of the way. And in the Sharon fight, yeah, he fought very smart. I mean, he mixed in 2 takedowns. He played from range. He played it safe. He didn't gas himself. He had taken that lesson learned and developed from it. And then in his last fight, well, I mean, it's a quick knockout, so you didn't get to see the gas tank extended. But you know what? I thought he looked pretty solid. Again, he looked smooth. He looked comfortable. When you've got multiple teammates on the card, everyone's prepared for the same time. He's training at a world-class level, world-class coaches. No doubt about it that he's getting more comfortable and getting more experience, and he could be decent. Whereas Nikolai Negumereanu, he's just like a serviceable blue-collar, grindy type guy. So I actually did go with the approach that Alberg would play a smart game plan, stay to the outside, chip away at him. I do credit the Romanian's toughness and his grit for why I think Alberg will win all 3 rounds, but not knock him out. And the plus 300 price tag on Alberg by decision. You know, you like the Negumereanu side because it's big plus money. I don't fault you. You and I both got the over 1.5. You and I both got the over 2.5. Unfortunately, when they read the scorecards, I'm hoping they're giving it to the New Zealander. You're hoping that they give it to the Romanian. Other than that, we're pretty much on the same page.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said about the teammate aspect of this that you brought up in your breakdown, right? Apparently, these guys rented a freaking mansion in the woods somewhere near New York City, and they're just staying out there, right? Of course, they got the money. They got Izzy obviously fighting in the main event, and they got the other 3 fighters competing as well. So, very interesting what that dynamic might mean for them once they actually step in the cage on Saturday night. All right, let's get to the next fight here. Very curious to hear your thoughts on this one. We're going to be talking about Julio Arce going up against Montel Jackson. In terms of odds, you got minus 200 on Jackson and plus 170 on Julio Arce. Now, Montel Jackson, the guy's been around for a little bit now. Remember when he made his debut and this guy was like a constant minus 500 favorite? You can never bet this guy because the potential on him was so huge. Now, when he's taken steps up, it seems like he kind of falters, right? The Brett Johns fight, he was a similar situation in terms of odds, right? He was about a minus 200, minus 220 favorite that night and ultimately got out-grinded. It was a close first round, but after that, Brett Johns was able to start to take over with his grappling and really put him through the ringer. Ricky Simone, that fight was too quick for Montel Jackson. That should not have happened at that stage of his career. He got obviously out-grappled in that one too. But when he fights the Jesse Straters and the JP Bays and the Felipe Clarches of the world, you see the potential that he has. Right, the guy has big power in his hands. You know, his Francis Ngannou level hands that they call him, just because based on the size of it. It's weird to see a guy at 135 pounds with that size of a hand, but he translates that into power. You know, that is 6 knockdowns in his last 2 fights alone, where he's able to land on these guys and put them down. You know, it took him 4 knockdowns against JP Bays. He still couldn't put him away because JP kept hugging him when they got back to the ground and kept stalling that fight out. But obviously against Jesse Strader, he's able to put him down and out in that matchup. I still think that he makes a little bit of mistakes when he's with his striking game, right? Like I think he is a little bit I don't want to say it wild, but I don't think he's as technical or as disciplined as a guy like Julio, who has a ton of kickboxing experience behind him, right? That's one of the best parts of his game, is that he can go out there, put numbers on you, put volume on you, outstrike you. For the most part, stay safe at distance and, do what he does. And that's just point fighting effectively from the outside. That's something that I think is going to be very important for him here against Jackson, because I think his takedown defense is decent enough, although I don't think he's faced somebody as good as Montel Jackson in that realm. But I think to this point, he holds about a 94% takedown defense rate. Again, not from guys that will attack him with the wrestling the way Montel Jackson will. So take that with a grain of salt. And then once this fight does remain on the feet, I do think his diverse striking skill set will make him live in this matchup to make it very, very close when they get to the judges' scorecards, which I think they will here. So I took the underdog shot on Julio Arce. I think he's run plus 170, plus 175, completely down with that. And his best path to victory, decision, right? I think Montel Jackson, very durable, very tough to put away. He does a decent enough job of staying safe, especially when he has a 5.5 reach advantage as well as a 4-inch height advantage. But I think he's going to have trouble with the output and volume that Julio Arce continues to put on him from the outside. So method of victory, Arce by decision, plus 300. I think just taking his money line saves any sort of upset here in terms of whether he gets a submission or a TKO of some sort. But if you are forcing me to take a prop, it's Arce by decision, plus 300. Fight to go decision, minus 150. Not too shabby either. Give me Arce by decision. What are you thinking here, Cody?
I took the same thing. I did take the RSA by decision. All the same points most of the same points you mentioned. I like Montel Jackson. The issue with Montel Jackson is that he's super low volume, right? And that's going to be a critical issue against a guy like Julio Arce. When you look at Montel Jackson, for the most part, his fights have been, let's say, his last time out against JP Buys, right? He scores 4 knockdowns, huge. But overall, he only lands 25 significant strikes. He would get the fight to the ground and then just get on top of him. Why not let him stand back up? Why not strike with him some more? He would just lie on top of him the whole time, right? He didn't do no ground and pound. He wasn't really trying to submit him. In fact, JP Buys was the one trying to throw up submissions. So I wasn't like super impressed with that, but the biggest takeaway is that it was super low volume. His fight with Jesse Strader, Jesse Strader was the late, great Aaron Carter's boxing coach. He probably shouldn't be in the UFC. He operates at a fairly low level. Montel finishes him off. But again, one has to wonder, like, how will he fare with that elite competition that maybe he's going to have trouble tracking? Arce fights like that very, very difficult to deal with. I hate to compare him to mostly women fighters, but Caitlin Chukagian and Holly Holm and Mano Fiorot, and like they're so fast and quick-footed. And I don't want to quite say Wonderboy Thompson because he's a kickboxer, not a karate specialist for the most part. But he's just so agile on the outside, touch and go, left hand, beautiful jab. You mentioned his kickboxing experience. He's also a former Golden Glove boxing champion out of New Jersey. This is in New York. He's going to have a lot of that hometown crowd advantage, I think. A lot of friends and family going down to see him. And of course, if he stays on his bike in the big cage and backpedals and just out volumes them, of course he's got a path to victory. Now, 94% takedown defense you brought up, and that looks good, and it sounds good, and it encourages me, but yeah, he hasn't fought a whole lot of wrestlers, so it's not like that's really the best stat going. I do think his takedown defense is, however, good enough to stuff Montel Jackson. When you do get taken down, survive. He's not ground and pounding. He's not throwing up these huge submissions. Survive. But it's going to be one of those situations where one guy's landing strike standing and then getting taken down, and it's up to the judges to make the right call. We got the underdog, so you're going to feel better with that underdog ticket, and maybe the hometown crowd starts to get in his ear. I will admit one thing. If you wanted to take that slight hedge out, if you didn't feel comfortable about it, the Montel Jackson by KO at plus 330, that actually looks quite good. You mentioned the fact that he's got those back-to-back knockdowns. He's actually got knockdowns in 4 straight fights, right? He knocked down JP Buys 4 times. He knocked down Jesse Strader twice and knocked him out in the first round. He knocked down Brett Johns, even though he lost that fight. And he knocked down Felipe Corrales, even though the fight went to decision. So his last 4 fights have all featured him landing a knockdown. You mentioned the fact that he's got these giant hands. He's got that raw power. And he's only been fighting pro since 2017. He's one of these guys that was always going to continuously make very good improvements. And fact is, he's landing knockdowns and he's starting to maybe get KOs under his belt, right? Julio Arce, I think the world of him. I think he's super talented. But for all the skill he has, it's almost like Rob Font-esque, where it's like the one shot hits him in return and he just hits the deck, right? His fight with Song Yadong, he fought a great first round. Technical. Second round, he gets clipped, he gets put away. You give him a pass on that one because it's Song Yadong. His fight with Hakeem Dawadu, he got stung early, never wanted to pull the trigger in the fight after that. His fight with Shayman Moraes, he's a big favorite, dropped twice by Shayman Moraes and put away. On the regional scene, a couple fights where he had been clipped in fights that he was a big favorite in or otherwise winning. So his durability is a little bit questionable. Montel's getting real good real fast, has scored knockdowns in his last 4, has big power, could win by knockout. And plus 330, like it's a huge price tag. But my reasoning for Arce, I thought that was the more, if they fought 100 times, I feel like the decision for Julio Arce is the most likely outcome. And again, you're getting that plus 250 tag on that, or plus 175 straight up on the money line. Yeah, I took the underdog shot as well.
Honestly, going into this, I thought I was going to be the one guy on an island here on RC. So it's a little bit more refreshing to hear that more people are seeing that underdog spot for him as well. So hopefully he can actually go out there and do the damn thing. Shout out to the live chat here, giving their condolences to the late, great Aaron Carter, as Cody said. DXJC saying RIP Aaron Carter. Even our guy Mitch Davies here showing his love as well. Very tragic and weird circumstance there. All right, let's get back into the fights here. Next up, we got a fight between Mike Trizano and Seung-Woo Choi. Now, in terms of odds, we got -170 on the Korean fighter and +145 on Mike Trizano. Fun fight here. They do a damn good job of lining Mike Trizano up with these fun strikers, right? It's hilarious when you see guys like Nate Maness constantly get grappled to the ground by the constant Russians that he has to face. And then Mike Trizano's over here just getting these lobs of, other strikers that can make these fun fights. And sometimes he's able to pull it off and sometimes he can't. Unfortunately, in his last fight against Lucas Almeida, he came up short after dropping Mike Trizano in that early going. We saw Almeida get a knockdown of his own in the second and then eventually get a finish in the third round. Even against Hakeem Dawodu for Mike Trizano, the better technical striker there was Hakeem Dawodu, and he was able to nearly triple Mike Trizano on significant strikes that night. So good win for Hakeem there. But I think what it further showcases is that Trizano, he's a good striker himself, right? He's a Julio Arce guy, he's a Tiger Schulman guy, similar to Julio Arce, Shane Burgos, and even Jimmy Rivera from a couple years ago. And he's been getting some good time training with those guys. So you expect to see high level striking from him. However, if he can't get into the groove like he couldn't do against Hakeem, like he couldn't do against Lucas, he does start to fall behind. And I think that's what's going to end up happening here as Seung-Woo Choi starts unloading on him from distance. He has a clean 1-2 down the middle, right down the pipe, very smooth and crisp shots. Good combinations as well from Seung-Woo Choi. Solid kicker as well. Obviously, he'll have a 3.5-inch reach advantage here, as well as a 1-inch height advantage. But I think it's going to come down to the output. As he starts touching up Trizano and getting more comfortable, I think it's going to be tough for Trizano to build himself back up from that spot. So I lean the overs here as well. Over 2.5 -225. A little bit chalky there. Fight goes to decision -185, -190. Not too bad, but specifically Choi to win by decision +165. I'd personally rather attach myself to that than his money line, but I'd be surprised if he ends up actually finishing Trizano. I think he'll just stay put with that point fighting style that he's used to and just take home a decision victory. What are you thinking here, Cody? You think Trizano wins in front of his hometown, or does Choi spoil those plans?
Yeah, I mean, I think Trizano on his best could totally be a live underdog in this spot. I mean, his ability to come forward, good pressure, but just like lately, he's just fighting very lost, not pulling the trigger, low volume, which wasn't really something that we're used to. I don't know what it is. Can't put my finger on it exactly, but if I had to guess, he used to rock like a wicked mullet, like a beautiful Kentucky waterfall. I'm talking a straight grade Mississippi mudslide. Yeah, and then at some point he just like shaved it off and he just like looks like an average Joe. Now he fights like an average Joe. There's no X factor to his game. It's not like he's got advanced grappling, advanced wrestling. His durability was his big thing, and then you saw the Almeida fight doing good until he gets dropped. Not known as the biggest power puncher per se. So if you're gonna get in these 15-minute dusts up routinely, you're going to have to do something. Be the guy that's coming forward. Be the guy that's moving you back. His fight with Ludovic Klein, I thought the fact that he was able to back him up continuously is what gave him the win on the judges' scorecards. But yeah, you could have scored it for Ludovic Klein as well, man. I mean, he's scoring takedowns. He's doing an excellent job. Had he lost that fight, that's putting him on a 4-fight losing streak. Mike Trizano just doesn't appear to be panning out, maybe to the level that we would like. That all being said, though, it's not like Seung-Woo Choi is really the most he's not the most trustworthy guy, I guess that you should say, right? I mean, I had a lot of faith in him going into his last fight against Josh Kulabau. How's he going to lose to Kulabau? Stay to the outside. Use that Muay Thai. Use that ranginess. Use that beautiful teep kick up the middle. And it just seemed like every time Kulabau touched him, he was getting hurt. His fight prior to that with Bruce Leroy, right? It was competitive in the first round. He won the striking exchanges in the first round, but he was still getting outstruck by Bruce Leroy. These are all problems, right? He has looked good. The best version of him looks good. That win over Julian Erosa, it aged quite well. But the fact is, it's just like he's not trustworthy. So I bet you he could win a decision. I bet you Trizano could win a decision. So I'll take the coward's way out on this one and just take this fight to go decision -190. It's not obviously that nice plus money price tag. If I was more confident in Choi, I'd take the decision like you got. If I was more confident in Trizano, I would take the decision on Trizano. Because I'm not super confident either way, I think I'm just going to hit that 190 and hit that like small bankroll builder.
Yeah, I'm fully on board with that. This is definitely going to turn out to be one of those just back and forth kickboxing matches. Might be close once it goes to the judges' scorecards, but hopefully, just for our predictions sake, we go with the Choi side here, and he gets his hand raised. All right, let's get to the next fight here. Very fun fight that we got coming up between two strawweights here. We're going to be talking about Karolina Kowalkiewicz and Savannah Gomez Juarez. In terms of odds, it was a pick'em a couple days ago. I saw some money initially come in on Karolina, but it seems like it's right back down to a pick'em price here. Both women, talented strikers. Karolina a little bit more disciplined and has a little bit more finesse with her combinations. Savannah a little bit more power, right? Look at that 82% finish rate. That's not common in women's MMA. That's 11 total wins that she has, 7 of them coming via knockout, 2 of them coming via submission. But she definitely likes to throw hands, and I think that's something that we'll see obviously transpire in this matchup with Karolina. But I do think that Karolina has that BJJ in her back pocket if she requires it, right? She showcased it in the Felice Herrig fight last time. She tried showing it off in the Jessica Penne fight, but that was ill-advised considering that was really the only way Jessica Penne could win the fight. But against a fighter like Savannah, maybe Karolina can get away with getting this fight back to the ground and trying to showcase off her jiu-jitsu game. Since joining American Top Team, you got to believe that they're really honing in on what she's best at. And she doesn't really have much time left, right? She's 37 years old. She's no spry chicken, nor is Savannah Gomez. I believe Savannah is actually turning 39 next month. So she's actually the older fighter here. Obviously, not as much wear and tear considering that Karolina has more UFC experience against higher level of competition. But that experience is very valuable in my opinion. And I think that unless she gets clipped with something silly here, like her durability has largely been very good, right? She's gotten beaten on by Yan Xiaonan, tore her goddamn tear duct, and still stayed in that fight for the full 15 minutes with a leaky eye the entire time. Joanna Jacek, she went 25 minutes with her. The only person that was able to put her out, one of the hardest hitters in women's MMA, period, Jessica Andrade. So if Savannah can muster up with Jessica Andrade was able to do, so be it. But I think that Karolina will be safe enough on the feet with her striking style, eventually look to get this to the ground and exploit the weakness in Savannah's game. So initially I was leaning, the Karolina via decision, which currently sits at plus 215, but even her by submission sitting at plus 550. Got to take a little bit of a sprinkle. Like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that is Savannah's weakest part of her game. And you got to believe that Karolina has the skill set to get that fight to that realm and exploit that. So I'll go Karolina. Let's go Karolina sub. Fuck it. Plus 550. Sign me up. Cody, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, not a terrible way of going. Again, I decided to just take the total prop and that the fight wouldn't go the distance. I think that everything you're saying makes a whole lot of sense. I think if Karolina does get the fight to the ground, she probably runs circles around Silvana, who, again, this is kind of a spot throughout her career. She's got excellent boxing. She's got big power, especially for the division. But as soon as the fight hits the ground, she seems to be a fish out of water. And in Karolina's case, BJJ black belt level grappling, coming off a big submission win, as you mentioned, the American Top Team affiliation, training with some of the best women martial artists in the world, some of the best overall martial arts in the world, under some of the best coaches in the world. Even though she's getting a little bit older, Savannah Gomez Juarez in the exact same position. They're both a little bit older. I would think that this is a good winnable fight for her. If it was to just stay standing, though, and she doesn't get this fight to the ground, it's not as if her wrestling is really all that good to begin with, but if she doesn't get this fight to the ground and it fight stays standing, she might be able to out-volume her, but she's going to get cracked, man. See, here's the problem with her. Her striking defense, not very good. She's there to get hit. Now, she went the distance with Joanna and Jacek a long-ass time ago, right? But since then, they've mashed her up fairly soft. Claudia Gadelha blows right through her, easy takedown, first-round submission, so we can't factor that one in. We get no info from that. But Jodie Escobar is a non-power puncher. Felice Herrig is a non-power puncher, right? Michelle Watterson, Alexa Grasso hasn't knocked anybody out in 8 years. Yao Jianan, who busted her up but couldn't put her down. Jessica Penne, not a knockout fighter. So I just think that there is quite a bit of a power discrepancy here, and that if she's going to be standing and she's going to get cracked, she could get knocked out. I truthfully do believe that. So with Silvana, her win condition, to me, would be the knockout. Carolina's win condition, she don't get knocked out, then she's going to swarm her, get the fight to the ground at some point, and then probably submit her or ground and pound her out of there. So in either case, I just don't really see it going the distance, which is sitting at about even money. So that's actually what I decided to go with.
Yeah, I like that spot as well. Finishing opportunities, plenty for both here. Just need one of them. That's it. All right.
Vanessa Demopoulos got one hell of a chin on her.
Oh my
It's like
God.
Silvana
That was
dropped her,
crazy.
and then she did the same thing like a Carolina. It's like, just don't go to the ground with them. Carolina's case, she took down Jessica Panay, right? It wasn't like it was a knockdown. She actively was like, this is something I want to pursue. But that same
No,
takedown,
Carolina.
yeah, I know. But you know what? She took down Jessica Panay. If you shoot that same takedown and you get it on Silva Gomez Juarez, this thing's done. This thing's done probably in the first round, early into the second round. You could finish it up. You get the win. I'm going to hit my inside the distance. You might hit submission as long as you don't get a TKO throw in the mix. Everyone's good, right? It's if she does not shoot the takedown, she's not really known for her offensive wrestling, or it gets stuffed for whatever reason. Not like she's going to get boxed up, but like she might hit Silvana Gomez a couple times, and then the shots that are going to come back will bust her up. She will bleed. She will swell out. You've seen it a number of times on her. She's more or less like half retired after one of her fights, come back, got that urge. They give her Felice Herrig. She beats Felice Herrig, who then leaves her own gloves in the center of the cage to be like, not for me anymore. To me, that doesn't scream like I'm back. So I wouldn't rule out that she's going to win for sure. But in either case, I see a finish. I do. So yeah, I just hopefully she does submit her. That way you win, and I get that fight doesn't go the distance. I win. We can both be cool with it.
Exactly. All right. You know, the fight that will serve us violence is this next one here. We got Otman Azaitar. What's in the bag? Going up against Matt Frevola here in terms of odds. We got minus 140 now on Azaitar. He actually opened up as a plus 130 dog and steady money coming in on him here. Now Matt Frevola sits at plus 120. Now look at that 93% finish rate from Otman Azaitar. The guy has power in his hands. 9 of his 13 wins coming via knockout, 3 via submission. I watched the fight that went to a decision, and holy crap, that guy took a shit kicking and did not go out. I was very surprised that Otman was not able to get him out of there, but it seemed like any other man probably would have fallen to that power and pressure of Otman. But the one thing that I did notice is that Otman does start to slow down the later that the fight goes, right? Like he's only used to just going in there and starching these guys within the first round and not having to have a hard night, right? He doesn't need to bring his lunch pail or anything like that. Matt Frevola is a guy that is willing to go to war for 15 minutes if that's what it takes. And if he can survive the early onslaught here from Otman Azaitar, I really think that he could get that grappling going that he's very good at. Obviously, he's the better overall grappler here from wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I think he can get this fight to the ground and possibly wrap up a submission in the second or third round of this matchup. But I really do not think that he'll be able to stand up to that early Otman power. I think Otman will find that chin early here for Vola. For Vola's durability been a big question mark over his last several fights. I think it's going to falter once again under the big pressure here from Otman Azaitar. So obviously, first and foremost, if you can parlay the fight doesn't go to decision from minus 270, go for it. You have my blessing. The under 1.5 at plus 108. I think it gets a little bit sketchy there should Frevola survive the early onslaught, because I think he's going to have to wear on him first before he's actually able to get him out of there. But you know, has the potential of hitting, especially if it goes with how I predict this fight to go. And that is Azaitar to win, knockout, round 1. Round 1 pays plus 215. Knockout pays plus 120. Put those two together, round 1 knockout, you can get plus 320. I'm completely okay with that. So I'll lean that way. Also, like I said, for the flip side, plus 500 on Frevola to win by submission, not too shabby. You want to get that specific round and method prop, Frevola by round 3 submission, plus 2,900. I think that's worth a little bit of a shot. But ultimately, my prediction is going to be Azaitar round 1 KO plus 320. Cody, what are you thinking here? Steamroller or bulldozer? Did we lose him? We may have lost Cody. I apologize. I felt like I set that up so goddamn well, too. Fuck. I know we'll get him back here in here very shortly. Let me see if he's there. Nope, he's not there. He'll be back very shortly, I promise, guys. But like I said, this fight is violence, right? I think that I'm looking for something to parlay the fight doesn't go to decision with. I might have to look at next week's card to actually end up pulling the trigger here. But I do think that this will be tremendous violence. Tremendous violence. I'm hoping for the local crowd that Frevola survives that early onslaught, eventually finishes this later, and possibly cashes my plus 2,900 on the round 3 submission. But man, it's hard to see how he deals with that big power that's going to be coming his way. JP said, damn, threw Cody the perfect alley-oop. I know. Oh, wait, he's back. He's back. There he is. The video's still a little bit grainy, but as long as your audio is good, I think that should be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I can hear you. Hopefully it holds together. I don't know. It's going down. I gotta solve this issue. Anyways, doesn't matter. I actually heard all your points. I agree with you. I don't know if we got the same notes on this show, but Azaitar packs a lot of heat, man. Again, his win condition is by knockout, and he's got a lot of money. He's a very rich and wealthy man. The UFC doesn't need to book this guy fights. He doesn't need to be fighting in professional cage fights, and yet he chooses to do it. So when he does it, the UFC matches him up generally with guys that he's got a good chance of knocking out early, and that's how he thrives. He's taken some time off. But again, they've booked him against a guy, Matt Frevola, that has a 7-second knockout loss to Terrence McKinney. He's got the knockout loss to Paulo Reyes. He got dropped a couple times against Lando Venata in their fight. He is known as a chinny fighter. Sure, he trains with Murad Blanchfield. Sure, he trains with Aljamain Sterling. Sure, he's a tough grinder. But if you can't take the punch, then it's very hard to implement that hard-nosed 15-minute style. So I just think Alman Azaitar catches him at some point. Plus 165 on the knockout, straight up, looks good to me. If you want to take the under 1.5, under 2.5, as you mentioned, Azaitar by first-round knockout, I agree with all those points.
Perfect. I love it. I'm hoping that this is tremendous violence because that's what the crowd will definitely need as this fight card keeps going on. All right, let's get to this next fight. We got a couple more fights to go on the prelims here. Next one, maybe not as much of a barn burner as this previous fight, but should still provide some fun exchanges. We're going to be talking about a middleweight bout between Andre Petroski and a Wellington Turman. In terms of odds, you got minus 195 now on Andre Petroski and plus 165 the return on Wellington Turman. Now, Wellington, obviously, training with the guys over there at Teixeira MMA and Fitness. Obviously, you know that Alex Pereira trains out of the same gym, as does somebody else who's fighting on the card, Mr. Dominic Reyes, who's been spending time over there in Danbury, Connecticut. So solid training partners for Wellington to get ready for this matchup. But I do ultimately think that Andre Petroski is going to be a little bit too strong for him in these situations. I think he is the better wrestler here. And then once it hits the ground, I think the fact that his wrestling will power his jiu-jitsu will be too much here for Wellington. I think that he's going to struggle with that big Petroski power on top of him. And I think at a certain point that we'll see Petroski wrap up a submission, man. Wellington, very slick BJJ artist, don't get me wrong, but I think that he'll crumble under that pressure eventually and possibly, look for a way out. So a couple of ways I was looking to attack it. The alternate total under 2.5 minus 190. I think that's worth the chalk here. Yes, there is a world where their jiu-jitsu nullifies each other and then we just get a Petroski decision, which currently sits at plus 330. But I really think that Petroski is in there to try to make a statement, right? Big win in his last matchup against Nick Maximov. Now he's trying to add on to that with a big win here over Turman. And I think to secure that hype that he wants, he needs to go out there and get a finish. And that's how he normally finishes. Look at that 100% finish rate that we see on his on the tail of the tape there. I think he stays true to that. I think he gets him to the ground. I think he subs him, makes it a short night. Give me Petroski inside the distance, which is currently sitting at plus 110. Yes, I think he wins by submission, which is plus 300, but he has big power in his hands too, so I wouldn't be surprised if he lands big on Wellington and puts him down here as well. But violence is what I'm looking for in this matchup. Cody, what are you thinking? You agree here?
Fully agree. Pure violence. The fight doesn't go the distances, like minus 225. So again, it's chalky, but I don't necessarily see it going to decision. Petroski, as you mentioned, the guy can wrestle. He's just absolutely jacked animal, big power. But everything looks good on paper, and then not necessarily the greatest results in the octagon all the time. Like, keep in mind, he went 3 full rounds with Michael Gilmore. It's not 3 full rounds. He went into the 3rd round with Michael Gilmore before eventually finishing him. As low as it gets. Shouldn't have gone out of the 1st round with Michael Gilmore, but yet gassed and hunked along and got outstruck and beat him in the third round. It wasn't a great performance. Now the next one with like Hu Wazang, how do you pronounce his name? Anyways, Petroski versus the same thing, dude. He'd be like, yeah, I'm really bad with the pronunciation on it. It's like, do you say the last name first? Do you say the first name first? Anyways, like easy money takedowns, easy money front chokes, wrangled on the guy's neck for like all the full 2 rounds into the third round to put him away. Very low level. Takes him into the third round. So if his jiu-jitsu is so good and his wrestling so good and he's got all this power, like how come he's fighting super low level guys and he fights at their level? His body language is not great. It looks like he's tired. It looks like he's ready to topple over. Unfortunately, the guys he's fighting, not necessarily the greatest. Now, against Nick Maximov, he submitted him in the first round. Very, very credible win because Nick Maximov is BJJ black belt. He's a Diaz guy. Submitted him in the first round. Very impressive. Like, how much of that is like his grappling super legit? I just subbed a fellow BJJ black belt. And how much of that is I caught this guy really clean early into the fight while I was fresh and had the arm strength? Because 2 fights prior, taking bums into the third round, I don't know that he's necessarily just turned that corner. Now, Wellington Turman, he's still super young, man. He's like 26 years old. No doubt he's getting better. The key here, though, is he's got excellent BJJ. Misha Cherkinov in his last fight takes him down. Actually, in the first round, he takes Misha's back. Did pretty good in the first round. Second round, he gets taken down. It looks like he's fatiguing. It looks like the tide's starting to turn, and he slaps up that beautiful armbar from guard. Laser fast. You never see it in men's MMA. So, it takes a hell of an armbar to pull off, especially over a decorated BJJ black belt like Misha Cherkinov. So we know his grappling's good. He does come from that shoot-to-box base, Curitiba, Brazil. He can strike. Doesn't show any knockout wins in 6 years, but I wouldn't totally rule it out. I think the guy can bang. He just needs the right level of opponent. But the real key thing that's interesting to me in this fight is that Wellington Turman seemed like one of these young, talented guys that could be okay, but really could never really get over the hump. And then he moved over to Glover Teixeira's gym over in Danbury, Connecticut, right? So now he's actively in camp with the former champion Glover Teixeira and Alex Pereira, who you're going to see in the main event of this card. By his own accord, he's been there for a year, and he's like, I feel like a completely different fighter. I'm finally evolving. I'm working with world-class guys, one-on-one with them every day, getting better. And I'm not going to lie, man. It was a really nice submission his last time out. If he can shore up his cardio, I think that he can be problems for Petroski. If Petroski doesn't take him down, sure, he's got big power. He'll gas himself out. Too much muscle. Guy's not a striker. Won't strike for 15 minutes. If he does get the takedowns, and he may, and he lies on top of him, that's fine. But again, if you tire and you slip up, it's going to be a problem. And if he gasses out and he doesn't get the takedowns, I think it's boxed up, man. I think he gets boxed up for sure. So I'm going to take the live underdog shot on Wellington Turman, which you can just hit the money line if you want. But more specifically, I think if he's going to win, he's winning this thing inside the distance. I'm super tempted on the TKO prop because it's plus 900. Again, he hasn't knocked anybody out in 6 years. That's being factored into the line. But plus 900, bro, I need like a mercy stoppage from the ref who's like, oh, this guy's just too tired and waves it off. But it's possible. But if you don't want to get greedy on that, because submission's live for sure, just take the inside the distance at plus 300, and I think you'd be pretty satisfied. So I'm going to go with the dog shot Turman, and if he's going to win inside the distance, so Turman inside the distance, plus 300 is the play.
I like that we both agree on violence in this spot. I don't care about the pick there because I'm not going to be playing that chalk on Petroski, but I don't mind the chalk on the violence spot here as well. All right, let's get to this next matchup, and we're going to be talking about a very intriguing one because a lot of people are wondering why the UFC and even Barstool decided to lob Molly McCann up to Miss Erin Blanchfield, I should say. She's only 23 goddamn years old. In terms of odds, we got minus 390 on Erin Blanchfield and plus 320 on Molly McCann. And honestly, Cody, when this matchup was originally announced, I was like, we're probably going to get a damn good line on Erin Blanchfield, right? Molly McCann's getting all this hype, all this steam, 2 tremendous highlight reel knockouts in her last couple fights. Got to believe that we're going to get a good line on Erin, but nope. The MMA community is in the know. They know how good Erin Blanchfield is and how she could prove to be a bad stylistic matchup for Molly McCann. Now, very young Erin Blanchfield, 23 years old. Like I said, she has 10 fights to her name so far. I believe she has two UFC bouts under her. The 3 UFC bouts, under her belt now against decent competition, right? Like against fair servings in this flyweight division. Just her last 2 fights alone, Miranda Maverick and JJ Aldrich. Those are mainstays in the UFC now, right? Those are solid veterans that if you get wins over them, that's good experience. Now, that initial going of the JJ Aldrich fight didn't really play out the best for Erin Blanchfield. She struggled with the striking, and she even struggled to get JJ Aldrich down. I think she went 0 of 4 on takedowns in that first round against JJ Aldrich, and she was forced to strike. And as much as we all want to shit on JJ Aldrich, she's not that bad, right? She has a good striking game. She throws in good combinations. She knows how to keep her feet under her, and she moves well. And Erin Blanchfield was very much struggling with that. Then the second round came in, and it looked like Erin was finally starting to get back into her groove. Seemed like she was finally starting to connect on her own, but then it was that weird scramble position where she was able to snatch up the neck of JJ Aldrich and win that fight, which seemed to be a bit of a comeback since she dropped that initial round. Even the Miranda Maverick fight, yes, she got that fight to the ground whenever she wanted, but on the feet, Miranda was having success. That's where Miranda was actually winning the fight. And that's how I can see Molly McCann potentially being live in this matchup. Like I've always, I don't want to call myself a Molly McCann hater or anything like that, but I felt like she's always been overrated over her past couple fights and, since for a while now. And I've been looking for the opportunities to fade her during this run. I tried doing it with Hannah Goldie. Like I'd look for it, but I don't think I ended up pulling the trigger there just because the odds just were not good enough in my opinion. But in this matchup, like, if she has truly made significant improvements in her striking, which I believe she has, and she can keep this fight upright, there's no way Erin Blanchfield looks minus 390 in this spot because Molly McCann will put that output on her and put that pressure on her and stay in her face. Unfortunately, I do think that Molly will struggle with the takedowns here of Erin. She's very sneaky with the trips that she goes for. Her takedown entries are very, high level in my opinion. Of course, she struggled against JJ Aldrich, but again, I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of the public underestimating JJ Aldrich. So I don't think it looks that bad that she went 0-4 against her. Here against Molly McCann, though, I do think she'll be able to find those takedowns. And then on the mat, I really think it's night and day. I think Erin is much better than her on the mat. I think she can eventually work for a submission and take that on home with her. So I'd be looking at Blanchfield by submission plus 330 is a line that you can currently get. You can get plus 420 if you're on FanDuel, by the way. But I think that's a phenomenal prop. I don't even mind the violence prop here, under 2.5 at plus 170 in case Molly does keep this upright. Maybe she just goes ape shit here and just tries to finish Erin Blanchfield in front of a ruckus MSG crowd. But I think the majority of this fight will take place on the ground. And at a certain point, Erin Blanchfield is going to get Molly into a bad position and she's going to lock up a submission and take that on home with her. So give me Erin via sub plus 330. Cody, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I'm just looking actually if I could get like one of those double takes, like Blanchfield by submission or decision. Oh, I can. Oh, 280. No way. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a terrible price.
Oh, minus 280. Minus 280. Sorry.
Yeah, minus 280. Yeah, no, I can see all the points you're making. Blanchfield could sub her. I'm leaning towards maybe just grinds her for that decision. But again, JJ Aldrich is no slouch, and you see the level she's operating at. Molly McCann, I'm sure she's gotten better, but I can't like shake that Jillian Robertson fight out of my head where she was a big favorite. She gave up 2 easy money takedowns. She gives up her back. She gets flattened out. She gets choked out. And unfortunately, it's like a low moment for the crowd. So, yeah, I don't know. The UFC could have marketed her a little bit better. They could have given her these dusts up, these people that are going to stand in front of her and allow her to throw spinning back elbows and knock people out and drink pints of beer with fans in the crowd. Like, she's a character. She's got that Barstool following. So, it's a strange fight because Blanchfield could make this fun and exciting and stand with her. If she mentioned the JJ Aldrich fight where she can't get the takedowns early in that first round, I liked her ability to just like adapt to her striking, where she realized I can't get the fight to the ground. I'm going to need to strike and create that opportunity, and was coming forward doing a lot better, starting to use that pressure. Against Molly McCann, she's got so much volume and she's tenacious and she's going to throw crazy spinning stuff. It's like I just get the fight to the ground as quickly. Amongst a lot of those opponents, a lot of weaker, say, grapplers. She's given up takedowns to Diana Belbita. She gave up the 5 takedowns to Taylor Santos, 7 takedowns to Laura Procopio. That's a bad look, man. That's a bad look because Procopio is not necessarily known as this big offensive grappling threat. And was just able to completely neutralize her and take her out of her game. So I find it hard to believe that Blanchfield wouldn't be able to do that. If she wants the takedowns, they should present themselves. But if they don't, then it's like, yeah, you're going to have to box her up to the best of your ability. The reason why I was thinking more of a decision for this fight is if the fight stays standing, I feel like Molly takes all of Blanchfield's shots. Blanchfield takes all of Molly's shots. If it's a spinning back elbow that does it again 3 times in a row, then I don't know what to tell you. But for the most part, she's a volume puncher. Like she throws, punches and bunches, combinations. She's not going to hit you with that one hitter quitter unless it involves her doing a 360 spin with her elbow like this. That's the condition of her knocking people out of some crazy technique. I don't see it materializing in this fight. If anyone's going to finish the fight, it's going to be Blanchfield. It's going to be Blanchfield by submission. But I almost feel like Molly wouldn't be taking this fight unless she's shored up her grappling to a certain ability. It's crazy to me that like Molly's the striker. She goes out there and bangs it out and like gets wins and like pads the grappler, right? Every time he bangs it out with people, he gets dropped to the floor. It's like, just fuse them into one and like they'd be a good, well-rounded martial artist. But if her grappling is improved, she survives. If not, Blanchfield by submission. I'm leaning towards decision, especially coming off of Miranda Maverick against Shayna Young last week.
God.
It's like you subbed her a minute 30 the last time you fought. You've made all these improvements. You've gotten all this much better. 10-8s are in one of the rounds. And, just content to cling on, win the positions, do what you got to do to get the victory, go through the motions. Blanchfield's got more of a killer instinct, I find. But I could see it being a decision that's just grinded out on the ground.
Yeah, honestly, I'd be surprised if Blanchfield gets extended time on the ground and does not get the finish in the spot. I think she's just that much better once this fight does hit the mat. Cody, your internet is hanging on by a thread, it seems. It was affecting the audio a tad bit, but we did manage to get through those breakdowns. If it gets any worse, I'll be sure to let you know. I just want to let the audience know that I see it as well, so we're good either way. All right, let's get...
start the breakdown for the next one. I'll drop out and jump back in.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's get to the next matchup. Why shouldn't we? Next up, we're going to be talking about a big light heavyweight matchup, and it is between Dominic, the Devastator Reyes. He comes in as a minus 215 favorite, plus 185 the return on Mr. Ryan Spann. Now, I'm very excited to see Dominic Reyes back inside the cage. Now, after his last fight against Yuri Prochazka, which was about a year and a half ago now, he went soul searching. He tried finding another gym. We saw him take some time at Extreme Couture, but ultimately he landed at Teixeira MMA and Fitness over there in Danbury, Connecticut. And what better training partners can you have than two people that are fighting for championships? One of them just so happens to be on the same card as you, and then the next one is next month as well. And then obviously Wellington Turman training on the card as well. So great to have those guys with Dominic Reyes. But Reyes, the far better fighter here, man. He is a great striker, uses his combinations very well, uses his range very well too, right? Normally he's the guy with the height and reach advantage, but there's a few guys that can tower over him, and maybe not tower. Obviously, it's only a 1-inch height advantage here for Ryan Spann, but I don't think that is going to play much of a factor here. I think Dominic Reyes is the better athlete, as we obviously hear every single time that he fights, but I do think that that's going to play into this fight with his explosiveness, his power, and his ability to get to the target. So I do like Reyes. I do think Reyes actually finishes Ryan Spann, but I don't think it happens early. I think this probably comes in the second or third round as he really starts to get into his groove and really just really touches up Ryan Spann and hurts him from distance. Spann has that early finishing capabilities, right? Only 5 wins coming via knockout in his 20 victories, but he definitely does have big power in his hands. 12 submission victories would surprise a lot of people, but this guy likes going for necks if you put it on a platter for him, similar to what Iwan Kutalaba unfortunately did the last time Ryan Spann was stepped inside the cage. But I think that Dominic Reyes has made enough improvements that he should be able to stay safe, touch up Ryan Spann, and then finish him later on in this matchup. My only qualm is, what if his chin is actually gone, right? That's 2 bad knockouts that he's coming off of. And sure, he's taken a bunch of time off to try to recuperate from that. But what if they are like career-changing knockouts, right? Like, what if he can't take any more shots anymore? And that's the big question mark that I have here. Ryan Spann, again, not many KOs on his record, but he has the power to potentially exploit that in Dominic Reyes should he have any chink in that armor of his durability. But I'll still go Dominic Reyes. I think Dominic Reyes, like I said, Reyes by KO plus 110, not too shabby. Reyes round 3 plus 1,000. Might have to take a little bit of a shot on that, but yeah, I like Reyes inside the distance. What do you think in your Cody, what are you thinking here?
Straight violence, dog. Straight violence under 1.5, which is about -15 or even money. Someone's getting finished. Dominic Reyes should be able to win the fight. Bigger body, higher level of experience. He fought all the best guys, arguably beat John Jones. Yeah, maybe it's possible that if he's able to survive that early onslaught, he's going to find the money, put him away. Him inside the distance makes sense. I think sneakily Spann's not a bad play. To me, it seems like Reyes, again, he's been off for a while, and his ability to take damage isn't quite what it used to be. He has operated at a very high level, but I don't think he's above getting stung with something. If he gets stung with something, he makes a mistake. If he makes a mistake, Spann locks up the neck. So I wouldn't completely rule out Ryan Spann as an underdog shot. But in both cases, man, someone's getting finished. Now, what you say makes sense with Dominic Reyes, maybe taking Ryan Spann later into the fight and finishing him later into the fight. But here's the thing with Ryan Spann. He's the first round master. This guy's been finished in the very first round 18 times in his career. Yes, 18 times. That includes his last 4 fights, which he split. Jan Kudalaba, Anthony Smith, Misha Cherkinov, Johnny Walker. They're always these quick first-round finishes. But he also shows, like back in the regional scene, he lost to Carl Roberson in 15 seconds. He's got a win over Larry Crow in 8 seconds. He lost to Brandon Ferron in 21 seconds. These are him winning fast, but it's also him losing fast. The guy's talented and can rack up a neck, but his durability is most definitely a question. And with Reyes, it's not so much he's not just going to take his time and pick away at him. It's like, I think Spann's going to force his hand. He's going to come at him. He's going to make it happen. It's either going to work or it's going to be to his detriment, and he'll get himself finished. So in either case, probably ends in the first round. But to just play a little safe, sometimes I like to play a little safe. I got 2.5 minutes of the second round to work with because I'm going to take that under 1.5 rounds. I think at some point it gets finished there. And again, even looking at Ryan Spann, it's like, when was the last time he even got past that mark? Oh, shit, yeah, that's right. 2 years ago against Sam Alvey. Bro, he dominates the first couple rounds, right? And then completely gasses and almost gets knocked out by Sam Alvey. That's who he is in a nutshell. Lots of talent. That talent dissipates fast. Now, Sam Alvey wasn't able to capitalize on that night. But I do feel like a guy like Dominic Reyes should be able to. So yesterday I did dog or pass. I was leaning Ryan Spann. I think he's got a live chance to snatch up the neck. I got a feeling that Dominic Reyes isn't quite with it as much as he used to be. But the more you think about it, man, he's a big body. He's a little more durable, I hope. Maybe his durability is in question, but Yuri Petroski is a hell of a beast. Jan Blachowicz is a former champion. Like, maybe you could give him a pass. He's taking time off. He's training with Alex Pereira. If he can take a shot and he takes that shot early and survives, Ryan Spann is going to just wilt under the pressure. So just give me that under 1.5, even money, -115, whatever your book offers, and straight violence on this fight.
It's going to be a treat to see Dominic Reyes finally step foot in the octagon again, especially considering how much potential we all expected from him after that big performance against John Jones. So hopefully he can get those wheels turning once again, and hopefully he can get his hand raised, because Magomed Ankalaev against Dominic Reyes, sign me up. Jamal Hill against Dominic Reyes, sign me up. That is if we can get Dominic Reyes close back to what his potential was before those 2 vicious knockouts. All right, let's get to the next matchup here. Very, very fun fight. Another one that potentially can serve up some violence. We got the prelim headliner here between Renato Moicano, who's coming in as a -120 favorite, +100 the return on City Kickboxing's Brad Riddell. Now, this is going to be the second soldier that City Kickboxing sends out there for UFC 281. And they got a good soldier here that they got, man. Brad Riddell, heavy striker, good Muay Thai. Obviously split time between Tiger Muay Thai initially in his career, but now mainly trains out of City Kickboxing. Big power in his hands. He uses a stocky frame to crash the pocket, really get his big punches off, and does a lot of good damage from that distance. He doesn't mind eating a couple shots for his troubles, but I think he'll be fine in this matchup against Renato. Obviously, in his last matchup, Brad Riddell went up against a similar size and similar framed opponent in Jalen Turner, and he was dispatched of in 45 seconds. But if you think that's going to take place once again, I think you're not thinking about it hard enough, right? It's not often that we get quick finishes like that, and I'd kind of be surprised if Renato is able to replicate that. He is a good striker at the beginning of fights. He uses his range well, uses that 1-2 and his kicks pretty well, but his bread and butter is that jiu-jitsu, right? He has 22 total fights, 16 wins, 9 of them coming via submission. The guy likes to strangle people. That's what he did against Alexander Hernandez a couple of fights ago, where he touched him up well, he actually hurt him early in that second round and then followed up with the club and sub situation. But it was the first round of that fight that, opened my eyes a little bit more to the Brad Riddell side. Renato struggled to get that fight to the ground. He could not get Hernandez to the mat. And then once they were at distance, Hernandez was the one that was continuously bonking Renato Moicano with combination after combination, and Renato could do nothing about it. So much so to the point that all three judges gave that first round to Alexander Hernandez. Now, Brad Riddell, I would assume is better than Alexander Hernandez. That's kind of, at least in my rankings, in my eyes. And I think that he can showcase a better striking display than what Alexander Hernandez did against Renato. Sure, he has to stay safe. Sure, there's that possibility of the club and sub early, similar to the Jalen Turner fight. But I think we'll see a little bit of a reserve Brad Riddell in the early goings here, and he should start to open up as this fight starts to go deeper into the rounds. I do like violence here. I do like the fight doesn't go to decision, as I do think there are tremendous finishing opportunities for both guys. That currently sits at -150, but I lean the Brad Riddell side here. Him to win by knockout is +275. That's where I'll be leaning here. I don't mind his money line either at +100, but I do see the finishing upside for Renato. So taking that violence is probably my best way to go about it, so I don't get caught in the middle here. Taking the Riddell KO and then it's Moicano by sub that ends up occurring. Give me violence, but in terms of official prediction, Riddell KO. What are you thinking here?
So Brad Riddell's an excellent kickboxer, right? But watching his kickboxing matches, he's not a power puncher. He's a good technical volume. No, not even a volume guy. He's excellent with his tactician, beautiful timing, beautiful setups, high ring IQ, but I don't necessarily see the power. And then in his MMA career, again, I don't necessarily see the power translate. First 3 fights in the UFC, again, he's winning, but he's winning by way of decision. Now, maybe they're tough opponents. Maybe they're mostly wrestlers that are trying to grind on him. When he fought Drew Dober, he got lit up. That's why he took Drew Dober down 5 times. That's why he looked to use his wrestling, because he wasn't a better striker than Drew Dober, at least not early, not until he tired him out, not until he put that pace on him. Looked good late, almost knocked out Drew Dober late. But again, it's like he uses wrestling way more in that fight. His fight with Rafael Fiziev, he was not the better striker. He knew that. He hardly tried to pull the trigger on him. Instead, he tried to wrestle. He tried to implement his wrestling again. So as much as he is a great kickboxer, you see him trying to wrestle a lot more. And then the fight with Jalen Turner, he got rocked right away and defensively started wrestling, tried to take him to the ground. Couldn't get him to the ground, ends up getting himself submitted with the guillotine choke and attempting to defend himself. But again, Brad, excellent fighter, he's not showing you those big KOs in the UFC, and he's been relying on his wrestling a lot more, where that seems to be his comfort zone. Against Renato Moicano, he could use his wrestling. I just don't know why he would really want to, right? Moicano is the better grappler. Moicano probably has an advantage if the fight hits the ground, but if Brad Riddell's on top and he's staying out of harm's way, he'll probably just score some points, rack up some cage control time, some top control time, and get a decision victory. The stand-up, I give Riddell the advantage, but seeing Moicano take that vicious beating from RDA for 25 minutes and taking all of his shots, I'm not super concerned about his ability to take a punch, especially not at 55. At 45, tough weight cut, I get it, maybe not as durable, but at 155 pounds, I feel like he is going to be able to take that damage, especially over the course of 3 rounds. Brad Riddell is going to have to mind his P's and Q's, take his time. He's also on a 2-fight losing streak. He's also been knocked out 2 fights back, seriously rocked in his last fight. I think he's going to try to fight one of those smart, educated game plans, use the low kick, use the counter hook, keep the fight standing, dance around him. But I don't think he's going to put pedal to the metal, try to go out there and do the damn thing. I think he'll try to make that safe approach and get back in the win column. So Brad Riddell, again, he's got 4 wins in the UFC. All 4 of his wins in the UFC, all by decision. He's not above winning a decision. And yet the win condition here by decision on this fight, plus 350. So I took the Brad Riddell by decision, plus 350.
Whoops, almost muted myself there. But I could see that approach as well, right? If he wants to play a little bit safe, I could see that too, especially considering that last devastating loss that he's coming off of. I'm open for some violence still, Cody. I apologize.
There's a lot of violence on this card. Just, no. I think Brad needs to win more than anything.
I don't mind it. All right. That's a wrap on the prelims. We only got bangers left to go here, folks. But before we get into the main card, let's just get a quick word from our sponsor, which is the All-Star app. Make sure you check out the All-Star app. Link in the description below. Android, iOS, whatever it is, you guys can download it on there. Customize it just the way you like it. Get all the up-to-date news, live odds, live stats as well during the fight. So make sure you guys check it out. Give them a download. It's free. There's nothing. You don't have to pay for anything premium either. So everything is free there. All right, Cody. First fight on the main card, another city kickboxing guy that we got coming up here. We got Dan the Hangman Hooker returning to 155 pounds. He's going up against Claudio Puelles. In terms of odds, we got -145 for the New Zealander and +125 for the Peruvian Claudio Puelles. Now, I made a video earlier today on my YouTube page, Cody. That is titled, "How is he not a bigger favorite?" And by he, I mean Mr. Dan Hooker. He is a tremendous talent who is on a very obvious slump at this point in time, right? He's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. But look at the guys that he's losing to. You're talking about a 5-round war against Dustin Poirier. You're talking about a quick knockout to Michael Chandler, which is usually Michael Chandler's win condition in his fights. He follows that up with a dismantling of Nasrat Haqparast over 50 minutes, but then goes on another 2-fight skid, first of which he obviously lost that short notice spot that he had against Islam Makhachev. Do you blame the guy? Makhachev's the goddamn champion right now. And then in his last fight, Arnold Allen took full advantage of a completely compromised Daniel Hooker, put the foot on the gas immediately, and did not give Dan Hooker a chance to breathe. He was able to get him out of there. Now, this is a massive step down for Dan Hooker, right? You're going up against a guy that's known for knee bars. Knee bars, Cody. When is the last time knee bars have been relevant in MMA? Never, because they're not that effective. Claudio Puelles, he might have something for it there, right? There was a guy back in the day, I don't know if it was knee bars or heel hooks, but Ian Entwistle, which was a former opponent of Dan Hooker. Yeah. Do you remember what happened when Dan Hooker went up against Ian Entwistle?
He got out of like 14 of them.
He got out of 14 of them, but he elbowed the shit out of him the entire time. Dan Hooker is a significantly better striker. I think he's a better overall fighter. And I think a lot of people are using the recent run that he's on as ammunition against him here without looking at who the soldier that they're sending in right now as the underdog in Claudio Puelles. Claudio Puelles was a +170 underdog to Jordan fucking Levitt a couple fights ago. And now you guys think that he should be +125 against a guy like Dan Hooker. You can say what you want about trajectories and all that, but Dan Hooker showed the last time he went on a 2-fight losing streak that he can still go out there and compete to the best of his abilities in terms of what he did against Nasrat Haqparast. I'm expecting a similar performance for him here against Claudio Puelles. I think he butchers him on the feet. This might look like the Felipe Silva fight without Felipe Silva fumbling the bag and getting knee barred in that 3rd round. I think Hooker butchers this man. I think he finishes him late. And I don't even think it's going to look close at all. Oh, last thing also, Dan Hooker, not that bad of a jiu-jitsu guy. People just look at his record and be like, oh, he got subbed 3 times. He's getting knee barred. What do you mean? The last time he got subbed was by Islam Makhachev, who, again, now champion, and also just subbed the guy with the UFC sub record. So, yes, we can give him a pass for that. The one before that was 10 plus years ago when he was still very early in his MMA career. Obviously came into MMA as a kickboxer, so you got to believe the grappling was still catching up at that point. Now I believe he is a full, complete fighter. We see his BJJ on full display as well. He has 7 submission victories out of his 21 wins. The guy knows what he's doing. He has a mean Anaconda and Dar series as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he locks up a submission here on a desperation takedown from Claudio Puelles with him leaving his neck out there. But I do think he does his most work on the feet, butchers him, TKOs him, +225. If you want to get funky with it and go with the submission, you can get +1,000, +1,600 on certain sites as well. But I think he touches him up on the feet and finishes him, like TKOs him. Like, I think Claudio won't be able to take the amount of shots that Hooker will be able to land on him the later that this fight goes. So Dan Hooker, emphatic return here. And I don't know if you can tell, Cody, but I feel damn good about it. What are your thoughts here? You share the same sentiment, or you think Claudio throws a wrench in my plans?
No, I agree, dude. I don't like Claudio Puelles. I never have. I thought that Felipe Silva fight back in the day, he took a beating. He looked terrible. No athleticism, no striking, no wrestling, and he falls on top of a knee bar. It was like, dude, I'm going to fade the shit out of this guy. Okay, dude, next guy he fights, I don't give a shit who it is. I'm fading him. Then they gave him Marcos Mariano. Anderson's guys like, I can't fade him here. It's Marcos Mariano. Okay, fair enough. then since then, dude, it's always these lower level guys. Like that's generally what he's been fighting at. Chris Grutzmacher fought, just didn't look good. Jordan Levitt actually outstruck him 21-20 over the course of 15 minutes. It's not a good fight. He wrestles in a couple takedowns here and there. That secures him rounds, but it's nothing super impressive. Now he's super young, and he is starting to fill out his frame a little bit and get a little more physical. He does train at a high level over in California. But again, I'm not quite seeing it out of him. When you look at the level of guys that he's been fighting and you compare that to the level of guys that Hooker's been fighting, it's completely night and day. And Hooker's got losses on his record like the Dustin Poirier fight. But that's a 3-round fight. He wins because he kicked the shit out of Dustin Poirier for the first 2 rounds. It was incredible. His fight with Paul Felder, a 5-round banger, right? His ability to fight those early rounds in the Felder fight. 5 rounds don't mix well with Dan Hooker because he takes a lot of damage, but he takes a lot of damage to give a lot of damage. At the elite level, might not work out. At a lower level, I think it's going to work out. Now, his fight with Nasrat Haqparast at 55, I thought he looked really good. He mixes in his 3 takedowns. His fight with Dustin Poirier, he had 4 takedowns. The guy can wrestle. The guy's got excellent pace. His striking is very solid. I feel better at him at 155 than 145 because I'm not as worried about a bad weight cut. You get clipped by something. Just fill out, rehydrate properly, stuff these takedowns, put a pace on him. Now, Silva can take one hell of a punch, or Claudio Puelles, can take one hell of a punch. We've seen that before. He's taken a lot of damage. He stuck with it, and he lived to tell the tale. But in this case, the more I think about it, I feel like Hooker could completely swarm this kid, swell up an eye, use those elbows, bust him up, take him down, rinse and repeat, and really put on a statement. So you mentioned that plus 250 on the TKO prop. I think that's what I'm going to go with as well. I think Dan Hooker gets him out of there. Don't know if it's going to be, early in the second, late in the third. Like it could be one of these dragged out beatings, but I feel like Hangman's got a lot to show still. And it's all about recency bias. He's won one of his last 4 fights. He can't take a punch no more. It's like, damn, dude. Like Arnold Allen probably gets the next title shot. Oh, and Islam Makhachev is the current champion. When Michael Chandler, former Bellator champion, former UFC title challenger, it's like, oh, okay. And Dustin Poirier, former champion, former. It's like, damn, dude. We're not talking top 10 guys. We're not talking like fringe top 5 guys. We're talking literally he's fought like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like outside of Charles, it's like he's been there, done that, always showed up, been a company man. Company man. Takes the Makhachev fight on short notice. So what does the UFC do for a good, solid, you kept mentioning the term soldier. What do you do for a good guy like that? You give them the Claudio Puelles treatment. You should be able to beat him, or you probably shouldn't be in the UFC. So go out there and make a statement. I think he does that. TKO plus 250.
I'm very happy that you're on that side too. I felt very convicted and fired up about this pick all week. And that was me at minus 165. Now he's down to minus 145, maybe even minus 140 on a couple spots. Mystifying to me, but recency bias, Cody. If we can track these points down, these recency bias moments, that's where we can start making most of our money as well. Hopefully we can do that this weekend. All right, let's get to the next fight here, and it's likely going to be the retirement fight for one Frankie the Answer Edgar. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 230 for Chris Gutierrez and plus 195 on old man Frankie Edgar. He said it. This is going to be his last matchup, and I felt like they could have done him a little bit better by giving him a tad bit more of a favorable matchup. Like there are paths for him to win this fight. Don't get me wrong, right? The grappling is obviously there. He has solid wrestling. He showcased some decent footwork and good output against Marlon Chito Vera in his last fight, which took place exactly a year ago, like at the annual NYC MSG card. But he obviously came up short. He got knocked out in the 3rd round there, as what Marlon Vera normally does, right? Just chips away at guys and then eventually finishes them late. That's what he was able to do against Frankie. But Frankie, like you see the things that he used to rely on just are not there anymore. His durability gone, his speed gone, his footwork kind of still there, but I don't know how much his feet are going to be working here when you got a guy like Chris Gutierrez chipping and chopping away at those calves the way that he does, man. Ask Vince Morales how Chris Gutierrez kicks, because I'm sure he still feels all the pain from when they fought that one time. But in this matchup. I think something that Frankie relies on a lot, movement, will be nullified here by the kicking game of Chris Gutierrez. A lot of people are going to say, oh, why couldn't Pedro do it? I do think that Gutierrez is a little bit more mobile and a better technical striker than Pedro Munoz. Munoz is just one of those guys that wants to throw big haymakers and throw his leg kicks. That's about it. He doesn't really try to set it up. He just throws it. And he's kind of slow too. Chris Gutierrez getting closer to his prime. I think he'll be able to set up those leg kicks, get his punches going after that, stuff a couple takedowns, get back to his feet, and I think that's going to cause him some issues. Now, it's also weird to me, though, that we got Chris Gutierrez 5'8", and then he's actually a 1-inch reach disadvantage to Frankie Edgar here. But like you'll see the size difference when these guys are squaring off. Even 2 weight classes down from the title that he won a couple years ago or several years ago now from Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar still looks small in the division that he should be at, right? That's another factor here that I think is going to play against him. I think we'll see Chris do decent enough with the takedown defense, keep this fight on the feet, chop away at the legs, win this fight via TKO, bring that on home with him. TKO, Chris Gutierrez, plus 200 is the line. Not a bad line there. Last thing I want to say, Chris Gutierrez dealing with a little bit of emotional stuff going into this, right? I'm not sure if a lot of people saw, but his head coach and all-around good guy, Mark Montoya, in the hospital as of this a couple of days ago. Apparently, he was dealing with a very bad infection and a possible cancerous I believe it was liver, if I'm not mistaken. They're getting to it early enough so they could potentially it's a kidney, a cancerous kidney. They got to it soon enough so they'll possibly be able to remove it in the next couple of days or next weeks once he recovers from the infection that he has. But that is a guy that's normally in Chris Gutierrez's corner, and you got to believe that's an extra sense of motivation for him to go out there, get this win on the biggest stage of his career against the biggest name to this point, so that he can make his coach Montoya back in Denver nice and happy while he's sitting in his hospital bed. So all thoughts to Mark Montoya. Hopefully he's all right. Hopefully he gets through this. I texted with him a little bit. Seems to be in great spirits. And thankfully they caught this thing early enough where he'll be able to, still go on about his life the way that he was expecting to even before this whole thing went down. So shout out to Mark Montoya. But even with that aside, I'm taking Chris Gutierrez by knockout. What about yourself, Cody?
Yeah, man, it's pretty crazy about Mark Montoya, one of the good guys of the game, factory ex Muay Thai. Obviously, tons of high-level talent coming out of the gym. Yeah, does that affect him positively or negatively? Yeah, motivated, wants to go get the win for his coach, but also don't have that like familiarity in the corner. You're not hearing his voice. It's not resonating with you. I don't know. It's just a little bit different. So I don't know if I take that in a positive or a negative. When guys announce retirement before the fight, when guys are like, this is my last fight, like 99% of the time they lose. It just happens every time, dude. It happens every time. You got one foot out the door. You're already thinking about retirement. When that moment gets tough in the round, you don't think, yeah, you know what? I'm done, right? There's an old wrestling term. They're like, it's always better to go out on your back. No one ever wins their last match. You end up like Ric Flair, busted up, passing the torch to somebody. Hulk Hogan losing the Rock at WrestleMania back in Toronto back in the day. You get your ass kicked, you pass the torch. That's what happens. So in Frankie's case, I'm a little bit worried there, but other than that, dude, I'm going to chalk this one actually up to another case of recency bias. His last fight's against Marlon Vera, right? Marlon Vera is one of the top contenders of the division, a fan favorite amongst everybody, on a killer run right now, probably conceivably going to fight for a belt in the very near future. He's winning the fight. He wins the first 2 rounds. He took him down 3 times. He had 5 minutes of top control. He outstruck him on the numbers. Not looked vintage, but he's about to beat Marlon Vera. And then he gets the nastiest front kick right up the middle that KOs him senseless. Damns the breaks. But can we completely ignore the fact that he was looking good in that fight? He was getting his takedowns. He was, entering the pocket. He was doing quite well. He was using his combinations. Had he won that fight over Marlon Vera, which he's a minute and a half away from potentially doing, it makes him relevant again. It shoots him up the rankings. It gives him a couple more solid fights within the division. His other guys that he's fought, again, it's always the best guys. A Corey Sandhagen, a Pedro Munoz, Korean Zombie, Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez. He's done himself no favors. He's always fought the best of the best. So again, that's what we talk about recency bias. One guy has fought, it's like the Claudio Puelles thing. We're saying, well, Hooker's shot. Well, Frankie's shot. Yeah, that's fair. He's 41 years old. He's taken a lot of damage. He's coming off a nasty knockout. Did you watch the fight? Because he actually looked pretty good in the fight, right? He still looks like he's still got some degree of his skills, and his skills would be very effective against a guy like Chris Gutierrez, I would think. Flip side of that, Chris Gutierrez, well, what's he done to prove that he's a world beater? What's he done to really announce himself as a top guy within the division? He's looked okay against moderate levels of competition. So are we way too high up on him just because we think Frankie Edgar is done? Potentially. But here's the key to me on why I'm going to take that shot on Frankie Edgar. If you look at Chris Gutierrez, he's rocking a 73% takedown defense. Mediocre. But more importantly, he's been taken down in his last 4 fights. He's been taken down in 5 of his last 6 fights overall. He got taken down by Dana Baccarel, taken down by Felipe Corrales, taken down by Andre Ewell, taken down twice by Cody Durden, and dominated on the ground in that first round. Got his back taken. Had literally no answer to get back up. That's just 2 years ago. Got destroyed on the ground by Cody Durden, a flyweight that took the fight on a week's notice. And suddenly, is he some master grappler? Well, he's been taken down in his last 4 fights, so his grappling obviously hasn't improved that much. Yeah, he can sit to the outside and kick, but you know what the problem with sitting to the outside and kicking is? A guy like Frankie Edgar's best takedown is a caught kick. He'll catch the kick and he'll drive forward and he'll get the takedown off it. So Gutierrez's best weapon actually does leave him vulnerable to getting taken down. If he gets taken down, he's in a world of shit, man. Frankie's not going anywhere. Frankie's one of these guys with very solid top control. He can still wrestle. He showed it in his last fight against Marlon Vera where he completed 3 takedowns. And to me, this one's got reminiscing all over the Yair Rodriguez fight. Yair Rodriguez is a big favorite. Frankie Edgar is quote-unquote done. Yair Rodriguez is going to knock him out. Watch. The fight starts. Frankie Edgar takes him down. Easy money because that's what Frankie Edgar does. And Frankie Edgar proceeds to absolutely butcher him from top position. What has Chris Gutierrez shown you in his ground game that would lead you to believe that he's just going to get back up at will or that he's going to stuff the takedowns at will? Nothing. And so that makes a guy like Frankie Edgar live in this spot. He's already a big underdog to begin with. And then if he's going to win, he's going to win by decision. I would think he just puts the pace on him and gets those takedowns. So the Frankie Edgar by decision at plus 350. Yeah, had to have a look at that, man. War Frankie Edgar, one for the good guys, one more time. Last but not least, close fight. Chris Gutierrez mauled him standing. Frankie Edgar got a couple shitty takedowns. The judges in New York, drum roll, please give it to Frankie because he's one of the good guys. And Cody, another one of the good guys, plus 350, baby. Give it to me. So I'll take it by any means necessary. Greasy decision or not. But the wrestling, I think the wrestling's key. So give me Frankie one more time.
I honestly do not hate it. Like, I don't mind that approach. This is coming from a guy that willingly took that minus 200-ish line on Chris Gutierrez earlier this week, but I can see that path to victory here from Frankie, and I like the prop, man. Frankie by decision. I'd be surprised. How is he going to finish Chris Gutierrez? Is he just going to maul him on the ground? That's not Frankie, right? Like, he did it to Yair Rodriguez, but I think we'll see more of a resistance here from Gutierrez in terms of at least getting back to his feet. So Frankie by decision, like you said, sitting around that plus 330 range, plus 350. I don't hate it, other than for my bankroll if I end up losing that bet.
If Frankie goes out there and has a good first round, right? Gutierrez is used to this. I'll go back, I'll sit down on my stool, and then Mark Montoya is going to come in and he's going to tell me what I need to hear. He's going to tell me the adjustments that I need to hear. If I'm on the ground, I'm in a bad spot. Yeah, I'm sure I have a jiu-jitsu coach. Mark Montoya is going to have the game plan. He's going to be able to put something together. Not having that there, you can't say that it was not going to affect a guy. Like, I'm sure he'll be motivated to do the damn thing, but one has to wonder, like, how much does that actually take out of a guy? How much of it is emotionally draining? How much of it is you lose the first round and then you're like, I'm about to let him down, and that causes a whole bunch of other pressure, right? Because, you know, like everything else, it's mostly mental, and if you slip up mentally, could be a problem. Frankie is one of these guys that, like, I don't think anybody has to worry about, is Frankie going to mail this in? Is Frankie going to throw a bum-ass kick and then favor his knee and then fall over and allow some random ass Chinese mid prospect beat?
Wait, Cody, you're going too far.
Who knows? Not my place to say. Frankie's going to go out there and fight for my dollar. That's what I'm cool with. So sign me up.
It will be very bittersweet if it goes the way that you're explaining, but we shall see. Saturday night. All right, big 3 fights coming up next. Banger in the lightweight division is what we're going to be talking about here between Dustin Poirier, who's coming in as a minus 215 favorite, plus 185 the return on the Iron Michael Chandler. Very fun fight here. We've been talking about this since Chandler made his UFC debut. You know, we knew eventually that these two were going to get matched up with one another, and I'm glad that it's taking place here I will say this. I wish it was 5 rounds, but here we are with 3. We might not even need the full 3 anyway. So that's fine as well. But stylistically, how these guys match up, right? You got 36-year-old Michael Chandler still going out there and trying to KO fools. He has 11 knockout victories out of his 23 career wins. But, that's usually the best way he likes to go about it, right? He wants to get that blitz off just like he did against my guy, Dan Hooker, a couple years ago. That's absolutely live here against Dustin Poirier. But Poirier still seems like he has his durability about him, still seems like he has his boxing style about him. Obviously hasn't been the most active as of late, but I still think that this is one of those guys that we can kind of rely on to go out there and just give us a Dustin Poirier performance, whether it's once a year or once every year and a half. I think that's something that we can rely on, especially at 32 years old. He's still at that stage of his career where he can achieve that. In the boxing realm, like I said, that's where he has the advantage over Chandler here, right? Yes, he's going to get dinged a couple times early in this matchup, but I think the longer that it drags on, we'll see Chandler really start to telegraph a lot of his big shots, while Dustin Poirier is just hitting him back with, a 3, 4, 5 punch combination to make up for that big shot that he had to incur. I think that boxing is going to be too much for Michael Chandler here. Chandler could obviously go the grappling route if he wants. I think DP is actually the better BJJ player here, but I don't know how much he's going to be able to do off of his back if Chandler can get him into that position. But one thing that has resonated with me for a while now, and Chandler seems to talk about this every single time he fights, is that he doesn't care about wins. He doesn't care about losses. He cares about delivering entertaining fights. That's what he got signed to the UFC to do, apparently. That's what he seems to want to do. He doesn't mind chucking the game plan out the window so he can go throw bombs against Charlie Olives, but then he pays the price for it as well, right? But I think even if he tries to bring that style here against Dustin Poirier, I think he's going to struggle to find that chin and get that big knockout. I am leaning Poirier via knockout. I think he eventually puts his punches together and gets Chandler out of there late. Plus 120 is currently the line on Poirier to win by knockout. I want nothing to do with the money line because I think it is a little bit wide. But I do think that Poirier gets his hand raised here. But what I'm really hoping this is just like a novelty lightweight fight. I really hope that they don't throw Dustin Poirier in there with Islam Makhachev next. We don't need that. Let's do winner of this against Beneil Dariush while Makhachev has his date with Alexander Volkanovski in February. After that is settled, then we'll get the number 1 contender between winner of this fight and Beneil Dariush. That would be the rightful number 1 contender in my eyes. I hope it's Dustin Poirier. Then we get Poirier Dariush. Completely fine with that. But in this matchup, Poirier knockout plus 120. Sign me up. Cody, what are you thinking here?
Justin Poirier makes me feel like such a piece of shit, man. Like, he's only 2 years older than me, right? And here's a guy that's already accomplished 35 pro mixed martial arts bouts. Pretty crazy. Fought the highest level, headline pay-per-views, made his money, won technically a world title, although I suppose it was somewhat vacant. The guy's done it all in that sense, right? On top of that, I got a kid. I can tell you how exhausting it is. I'm sure I look tired. The guy's got a bunch of kids. He's a family man. He's an excellent family man. People want to say his wife's sliding into DMs. Not true. Good's a good fucking dude. Good family guy. Pro mixed martial arts fighter. So good. On like the little free time that he probably doesn't have because, he's training. He's got a family. On like the little bit of free time the fucking guy's got. Charity, runs a charity, the Good Fight. And the guy is a good man, gives back, does whatever he can for the community, real community leader. And then, if you can believe that, if there was maybe even the littlest smidget of time that the man would possibly have in his life, it's like he's slanging hot sauce. Bro, there's no quit in Dustin Poirier. The guy does not have to fight for a living. He's a multimillionaire, and yet he chooses to do it. So, yeah, dude, motivates me to get off my ass and do more with my life because, all he does is push and continuously grind for that. And that's cool to me because, again, he doesn't need this fight with Chandler. His run of maybe you get to a title fight, maybe you don't, but it doesn't matter. He's made his money. He's done all that. He does it because he wants to. That's what motivates him is the competition. And Mike Thomas Brown's very adamant that Poirier's in the gym. He looks as good as ever. He's highly motivated. His cardio is solid. Cardio is going to be important to me here because his fight with Charles Oliveira, thought he just completely gassed out. Maybe it's the knees to the body. With Chucky Olives, usually is the knees to the body. But if he shows up in shape and he can push a bit of a pace for a round and a half, 2 rounds, I think he gets Chandler out of there. I think this is going to be an absolute banger. If you're the kind of guy that doesn't mind taking small return on your action, then fight doesn't go the distance at minus 240. seems pretty safe. Someone's getting knocked out. If you want to be a little bolder with it, maybe the under 2.5, minus 220 range. Straight up violence in this fight. I got to go with Dustin Poirier. I feel like Michael Chandler in his last fight with Tony Ferguson, he lost the first round. He didn't look particularly good. He was getting touched up from Ferguson, who's not really known as a power puncher. And then in the second round, he jungle kicks him out of oblivion. One of the sweetest KOs you'll ever see. And as a result, people are high on him. People like him. It's a highlight reel KO to add to the repertoire. It's good. They play it. It's a big win over a guy like Tony Ferguson. To me, he was getting hit. He wasn't quite comfortable. His fight with Justin Gaethje is the equivalent to running your car at about 60 miles per hour straight into a telephone pole and not wear the seatbelt. He got wrecked, bro. His face was wrecked. His body was wrecked. I think he's getting a little bit older. He's been in those wars. He's been knocked out by a featherweight in Patricio Freite. He's been rolled his ankle against Brett Primus back in Bellator. He's had these fluke injuries. He's had these bad upset losses. He's had the durability issues. And if they're going to get out there and they're going to slang it down, I feel like Poirier catches him. Now, the argument to that, of course, is, bro, he went the distance with Justin Gaethje in an absolute crazy fight. And it was. But Gaethje's one of these guys that throws from the hip side and makes it this brawl, whereas like Poirier's technical boxing is tight. He could go out there, find the target, hurt him, and when he does, take advantage and put him away the same way Charles Oliveira did, the same way a lot of other guys in the past have done. So Michael Chandler should be he's probably your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. The guy is a consummate professional, always brings the entertainment. For someone who's only had 4 fights in the UFC, hard to imagine someone more exciting than Michael Chandler, let's be real. Whether you like him or you don't, he always brings the goods. This is going to be one hell of a fight. It ain't going the distance. Minus 240 on that. But because you got to be a little more vindictful and pick one side or the other, I am going to go with Dustin Poirier. I'm going to take that TKO prop, which can also be had at plus 165.
Man, I love the breakdown there. And I'm glad that we ended up on the same side there, right? Obviously, that early Chandler power is always live, but Poirier still seems to have it, and hopefully he can get his hand raised this weekend. All right, let's get to the co-main event. First title fight of the night takes place in the women's strawweight division. We got champion Carla Esparza, two-time champion Carla Esparza, looking to defend her title for the first time, because the first time she won the belt was against Rose Namajunas, and that was followed up by the beginning of the Joanna Jędrzejczyk era, as she absolutely obliterated her in their matchup. That was the same night that Dos Anjos pulled off that big upset against Anthony Pettis. That's how long ago that was. Now Carla obviously regains the belt against the woman that she initially wanted through after it was vacant in Rose Namajunas, and now here she is defending it against former strawweight champion as well, Wiley Zhang. Very interesting fight here. Obvious that Carla Esparza has a grappling advantage here. That seems to be how she always ends up getting her hand raised. But I think the very intriguing stat going into this matchup is that Carla Esparza has been an underdog 8 times in the UFC. She's come through 6 of those times. She is a reliable underdog, right? The reason that the betting public seems to disrespect her on a regular basis is due to her lack of striking skills, right? Like, she doesn't really have much to offer there. Like, not much power, not much discipline, not much technicality to it. But it's her grappling that ends up getting her hand raised. She's able to get fights to the ground, and from there, she does decent enough work in terms of keeping her opponents down, getting enough control time, and getting her hand raised via decision. She only has a 32% finish rate. I believe the most recent one was against Yan Xiaonan, where she got her into that crucifix position and was able to touch her up there and get that TKO finish. But more often than not, you don't really see a Carla Esparza finish. Now, Wiley Zhang, one of the big stories about her over her last couple fights has been the fact that she's been working with Henry Cejudo, right? She even spent one of her full training camps down there at Fight Ready. She's not there. Obviously, she has her own coaching staff now, and they split time between, if I'm not mistaken, China as well as Thailand, specifically at Bang Tao Muay Thai, where she can get that specialized training. We know she has a striking advantage here. That is without a doubt. But it's that constant grappling improvements that I believe that we're seeing from her that should keep her safe in the early going in this matchup, which will likely open up that finishing opportunity for her. Should this fight go deep, though, like should it go into round 3, round 4, that means that Carla Esparza is landing takedowns and she's getting control time, which is not out of the realm of possibility, right? A lot of people want to overlook that round 5 against Rose Namajunas, where Rose got Wiley down with 4 minutes left on the clock, and Wiley could do nothing in terms of getting back to her feet. And in my opinion, Carla better wrestler than Rose Namajunas. Maybe not a better BJJ practitioner, but damn good in terms of keeping opponents on the mat. So that's where my concern runs in with the money line here, right? Minus 390 on Wiley Zhang on the money line. I'm not really feeling that. So I'd be looking for a prop. That's why you guys love coming to our show. So the spot that I'd be looking at is Zhang inside the distance. It's sitting at plus 100. You can take the KO straight up at plus 120, but we've seen weirder things happen in the cage where there's a possible club and sub situation that opens up for the better striker, right? Yuri Prohaska against Glover Teixeira. Perfect example there for you guys. But I think that Zhang will touch her up on the feet. I think she'll stop the initial takedown threat of Carla Esparza, and that will eventually open up a finishing opportunity for her via knockout. So I think we get Anu in this spot. I have a bet on the inside the distance at plus 100. I feel pretty damn good about it. Cody, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, Carlos Esparza, kudos for her for getting back to championship status. But again, I mean, that last fight with Rose is just god awful. Like, it's not a good fight. It's not a decisive victory. Her wrestling, although she got a couple takedowns, didn't do anything with it. Wasn't anything noteworthy. I don't know. Like, does anybody consider her the real bona fide number one in the world? Or is this a great fight for Zhang Weili to jump back in there and take on someone who's realistically 4 or 5 in the division? She is the second best wrestler at 115 pounds. That's her mark, right? Obviously, with Tatiana Suarez just having an inability to stay healthy, it's fallen on Esparza for being like the division's wrestler. She's used it to great effect. Against Zhang Weili, maybe she could go out there and get those takedowns. Maybe she could be able to establish some top control. Those are all real things. But I feel like exactly what you're saying. She went to fight ready. She spent a lot of time on her wrestling. You saw her come back against Rose. Wrestling looked a lot better. Did give up the takedowns, of course, but, you know, rounding out. And then that's when she spent the time there at fight ready after that. Got ready for the Joanna and Jacek fight. I thought she looked as good as ever. Strong, physical, got 3 takedowns of her own against Joanna and Jacek. If you remember, Joanna and Jacek's great thing was you couldn't take her down. Her takedown defense was unbelievable. She beat the crap out of Carlos Esparza on the simple fact that Carlos Esparza couldn't come anywhere near taking her down. So is Jacek done, or is Zhang Weili really is the truth, man? She's got skills everywhere. She's making massive improvements. She's durable. She can get into a 5-round war, a slugfest. She can deliver damage. She can strike, but she can also wrestle. She can also push that pace. And with Carla, she has used her striking to some effect. She outstruck Claudia Gadelha a little bit on the feet. Once Claudia tired, of course, but a lot of it's the same thing. She pushes the jab. Her hands are low. She's there to get hit. When strikers do find the mark on her, she swells easily, right? And I feel like Zhang Weili is going to frustrate her, hurt her, take her into some deeper waters, and then put her away. I can see a late 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round stoppage, but at some point I do feel that the challenger breaks on through, gets a TKO finish. So I decided to go with the TKO prop on that one for Zhang at plus 120. I just got a feeling that 25 minutes is a long time to be in there with her, especially with Carla, that if she gets the takedowns, she'll buy time. No doubt. It'll go later. As it goes later, it'll be a late stoppage. If she does not get those takedowns, she is in for a world of hurt. And of course, 25 minutes is just a long time to be in there. So give me the challenger to go out there, win the title, and hopefully cash a plus 120 TKO prop ticket.
I like it. I like it. Again, it seems like we're on a lot of the same plays here, Cody, and I'm very happy about that. Usually when we line up on things, things seem to go our way. So maybe a big UFC 281 headed our way this weekend. All right. We are about to get ready for the main event here, but I want to remind the 130 live viewers that we have with us on this Thursday evening, I guess now, because it's dark as shit out there. Like 2 hours ago, it started to get dark. But make sure you guys smash that like and subscribe if you haven't already. That is the easiest and best way to remind the guys over at the All-Star that you guys enjoy the content that we drop for you guys on a weekly basis over here. And if you so want to, just go out there and drop a comment as well. That would help even more. Let us know what your favorite props are, and we'll be sure to see if they come through the following week. All right, Cody, we got a big one here. We got Israel Adesanya looking to defend his middleweight strap for the 6th time. Also, he could tie Anderson Silva for most consecutive middleweight wins in the UFC at 13 should he get his hand raised this weekend. So not just a title on the line, but, you know, legacy building accolades for Israel Adesanya on the line as well. He's going up against former foe Alex Pereira, and we all know the big storyline going into this matchup, right? Let me just quickly get the odds out of the way, because obviously that's something that people care about here. We got minus 200, I believe, here on Yeah, minus 205 on Israel Adesanya, plus 175 on Alex Pereira. Now, like I said, these guys met twice before in the kickboxing realm, and Alex Pereira is actually 2-0 over Israel Adesanya. And, I heard a lot of people using that as ammunition whenever they were looking for bets on Alex Pereira and, previous UFC fights for him. But then after looking at the fight and actually watching it, you're like, oh shit, Izzy actually did well. Like he did much better than 0-2 would indicate from the surface. First fight went to a decision. I thought it was close. I thought Izzy deserved to get his hand raised. I thought he was landing the better combinations, more strikes. Pereira, a lot of his strikes were just, big movements, big actions, which probably the judges were kind of catering to a little bit more, even if it meant that he wasn't really landing on Adesanya. And then in the second fight, Adesanya drops him, almost finishes him himself, but then he's not able to get him out of there. Pereira answers back the next round and actually finishes him in that round as well. So competitive matchups. Now they're in the mixed martial arts realm, right? You can get takedowns, you can get clinches. You're not going to be told to, break it up whenever you clinch up. Now you're going to have to force yourself to work in those positions, whether it's to do damage, to get takedowns, or even just to get out of those positions. I was wondering, I'm like, and I'll obviously lob the question up to you when I get to you, but do the MMA gloves favor the big power of Pereira or the finesse and the discipline of the Israel Adesanya side? And initially I was thinking it would help Pereira, right? He already has big power. Now he has less padding. Good luck trying to eat a shot from this guy. But when you watch back the kickboxing fights, you see a lot of the shots that Izzy's landing on Pereira are landing on the guard of the gloves. You don't have as much padding anymore. You don't have as much of a defense now that you're going to be using mixed martial arts gloves. So I'll be interested to see how many shots Izzy ends up landing on Alex, because he doesn't have as much of a defense to worry about with those kickboxing gloves. So I do think it ends up favoring Israel here, and he should be able to touch up Pereira and make it a difficult night for him. And then I think that we see that traditional, like, Izzy striking defense keep him safe here. I think he'll stay at distance. I think he'll utilize his footwork pretty well, use his kicks, use his combinations. He will feint for takedowns, I think, here, but I don't think he's coming in with a grapple-heavy game plan. Sure, he has way more MMA experience than Alex Pereira, but I don't think it's to the extent that, like, he's going to go out there and Khabib him. Like, I saw enough from the takedown defense from Pereira for me to believe that even if Izzy did try that approach, Izzy would not be successful in it. He would have to work very hard, and it would be detrimental for him, especially over a 25-minute fight. So I think we see Izzy outwork him here, out finesse him on the feet, land the better shots, land more shots, possibly finish him later on in this round. So if you have one of those round 4 or 5 decision props that you can fire on, I think that would be a good way to go about it. But I think that we'll see him I'm stuck between a late finish and decision. His decision currently sits at plus 110. Round 4 sits at plus 2,000. Round 5 sits at plus 2,500. So maybe a combination of those props, obviously, as well, if you can get that the combination prop that I talked about, round 4 or 5 decision would be a good spot. But I think this is Izzy's fight. I think the odds are correct where they're at money line wise. So no real edge in terms of betting the money line there. But from a props perspective, that's where you likely end up making your money. So I'm going Izzy late stoppage or decision. What are you thinking here, Cody?
Yeah, I won't lie to you guys. It's a huge pay-per-view. It's a huge main event. We're all going to have action on it, but I don't think I have any smart action on it. I don't like any of the props on this particular fight. It screams violence, and yet I find myself leaning towards the fight goes the distance, same as you, which is only about even money. But that 25 minutes is a long-ass time for two guys, big middleweights. One dude, Alex Pereira, is like the biggest middleweight, walks around like 225 pounds. And Izzy's obviously no small guy himself. They're both strikers. They're both probably going to be kickboxing for 25 minutes. The last time they fought years ago, but ended in a knockout. Like, this thing does scream violence. It screams not going 25 minutes. And yet that to me does seem like the most likely outcome. Israel Adesanya is that surgical tactician, stays at the outside. He is, though, risk adverse, right? Great champions generally are. Georges St-Pierre just took the guys down. John Jones, very boring, stays to the outside. Izzy's had to kind of do the same thing, the Jones approach, stay to the outside and just go through the motions. He's beaten up on Jared Cannonier, sure. It's just not a very good fight. His fight with Yoel Romero, one of the worst fights I've ever seen in my life, just not willing to engage him. His fight with Kelvin Gastelum, great fight. He gets rocked by a head kick and he loses 2 of the 5 rounds to Kelvin Gastelum. So There's been issues with maybe being lackadaisical. There has been issues where he has gotten hit in there a few times. If he wants to take the safe approach against Pereira, it's not stand in the pocket and throw down with him. It's fight that smart game plan. Stay to the outside. Make it a boring fight if need be. If they're booing you, you're doing something right because you're not allowing this guy to land those big eye-catching blows. The fans don't exactly love it, but that would be the safest route. And I think he is capable of doing that in that big cage. Who do the small gloves favor? I tend to think Alex Pereira. Again, he's looking for that one big shot. Israel Adesanya is more of a volume game. He'll set up the jab. He'll try to set traps for the right hand. He'll use that leg kick, that straight kick up the middle as well, kind of as a rangefinder. Put some dividends in, money in the bank, and just allow the judges to know that he's doing a little bit more than you. But they're not exactly the biggest shots. Pereira, meanwhile, he could lose a round or two. But at some point, he catches a kick and delivers an overhand right over the top. Or at some point, he gets into the clinch, and lands something, gets into the pocket, lands one of those big left hooks. He can make something happen. Like, Sean Strickland, man, he got a hell of a chin because he's an inbred hillbilly, right? So, the only way he gets knocked out is spinning shit. You've seen Zaleski dos Santos once upon a time hit him with a great hook kick. That put him away. Outside of that, it's going to need some crazy good power. Pereira's got that crazy good power, man. He folds him up. It's not going to take much for this guy to land and do some damage. In kickboxing, you have the opportunity to hit the deck, gather your senses, continue on. And it's with a 12-ounce glove, 8-ounce glove, 10-ounce glove. This is a 4-ounce glove, man. If you think you're blocking, you're not. It gets through. It's going to do a lot of damage. And in Pereira's case, he has that. So even though I think Izzy stays to the outside and just touches away the whole time, I think it goes to decision. It's like betting against Pereira that he's just going to get jabbed the whole time. Like, you don't think he knows what he's doing? Dude's a 2-weight world champion in glory kickboxing. One of the best kickboxers to do the damn thing. Last time they fought, homie left on a stretcher. I mean, he's a problem for people. You think 25 minutes? Like, even his fight with Bruno Santos, Bruno Silva. Bruno did a really good job. Don't get me wrong. But, Pereira still landed over 100 significant strikes. And if you look at Izzy lands 100 significant strikes too in 5 rounds, right? Like, he's not a huge volume guy. Pereira seems like he could throw up volume. He could use the power. Last but not least, Izzy's style is going to burn him eventually because the fans are booing and they don't like it. And the judges, that might be a reflection to them. So if you're not engaging, if you're staying to the outside and you're jabbing, you're kicking and you're moving, the other guy's moving forward, he's throwing those big eye-catching shots, a couple glance off your arm and you get some oohs and ahs, like, they might give it to you, right? So my heart tells me fight goes the distance, minus 115, even money. If I had a gun to my head, I outright had to pick somebody. I'm leaning towards Alex Pereira to get the job done, but I have a tendency to sometimes go against greatness. And in Izzy's case, he can dye his hair and he can do a stupid little dance and he can, put Dragon Ball Z up. It doesn't matter, man, right? The guy's a badass. The guy's an excellent martial artist. He's very tactical and high ring IQ generally is what leads to this longevity and these long win streaks and this idea of being one of the GOATs. And Izzy has the ability to dictate the action in there. But to me, having lost to a man twice, controversial or not, knocked out the second time, that's got to play on your mind. And then when Pereira comes to the UFC, you don't think he's like, dude, I thought I beat you the first time. Second time you got lucky. I dropped you. I want that fight. No, he's been quite the opposite. Don't want to fight this guy. He should fight the number 1 contender. He should fight all the other guys in the division. He should go on a long winning streak. He's been very vocal about he does not want to fight Alex Pereira, but he's gotten goaded into it, and now he's going to have to step up to the plate and do the damn thing. Fight week, he's saying, the title doesn't matter to me. It's getting this win over Pereira. Like, that's in the back of his mind. Where Pereira, I think it's like, dude, I knocked you out with 10-ounce gloves. All I got to do is land once with 4-ounce gloves, right? Trains with Glover Teixeira. So is he going to take him down? If Izzy did take him down, I wonder what the difference of feel is to feel Israel Adesanya on top of you as opposed to Glover Teixeira on top of you. Like, I think his ground game is going to be sneaky okay. Takedown defense sneaky okay. He's just got to find that one big shot and clip him. And so my brain's telling me he's going to clip him or die trying inside the distance. Bet that. But then my heart's telling me, no, Israel Adesanya is going to have another stinker performance. Stay to the outside, jab, kick, more volume, win the fight. Decision. And because I'm conflicted on it, I don't want to sit here and tell you guys I love this one play. Let's get on this. I'll have money on the main event. It's the main event of an awesome pay-per-view, and it's an awesome fight. But it's not going to be for anything more than just, that little bit of extra thrill. Like, I don't feel great about any one particular prop in this fight.
It has the potential to be to play out so many different ways. But
so many ways.
But the part that intrigues me the most is the fact that we're finally going to get somebody that can stand up to the striking of Israel Adesanya, because he's just been coasting away in some of these wins, just not taking too much damage. And a lot of that has to do with him just being so much taller and lankier than these guys, right? When he faced somebody that was actually somewhat his size in Jan Blachowicz, he wasn't able to get away with that big striking from the outside. So now with Alex Pereira, bigger than him essentially, will be interesting to see what kind of approach he'll take to try to stop that finesse game of Israel Adesanya. All right, let's get to the 3 best prop bets, and then we'll get out of here, Cody, and I'll kick things off as usual. First up, I'm going to go with Weili Zhang inside the distance, plus 100. That's a no-brainer bet for me there. If she wins this fight, it likely comes inside the distance. I don't want to tie myself to that big minus 390 on her money line, but I do think that if she wins this fight, that means that she kept it in the stand-up realm, and I just don't see Carla Esparza dealing with the firepower well enough to stay in this fight. So let's go Zhang inside the distance, plus 100. Next up, I'm going to go Otman Azaitar, round 1 KO, plus 320. I don't know if Frevola can keep up with that big power. Violence is probably my favorite bet in that matchup, although it's quite chalky. This specific prediction, this specific method of victory, I think is the best way to go about it. Azaitar, round 1 KO. If I remember correctly as well, round 3 Frevola submission, plus 2,900. Not a bad stab either. And then lastly, I'm going to go with Erin Blanchfield via submission, plus 420, my favorite number in the world. I think that she goes up there, takes down Molly McCann over and over again, and then eventually wraps up a submission of some sort. She is tremendously talented on the ground, and I don't think that Molly McCann can keep up with her there. So there you guys go. Cody, what do you got for the boys?
I'm going big plus money this week. Zhang by KO, not huge plus money, plus 120. But again, 25 minutes to work with. You saw her knock out Joanny and Jacek last time out. Striking's on a different level. Ability to just sustain a pace and just like fight as good in the first round as you are fighting the 5th round. That's going to be huge. She'll eventually overwhelm Carlos Esparza, who kudos for her to getting back to a championship status. But once these takedowns come up short, it's going to be a world of hurt. So I think she gets TKO'd, plus 120. Not bad. Moving over, we got some big plus 300 props here. Carlos Alberg by decision. Nego Mariano, his like one character trait is that like he's tough, he's durable, he can take the shot. And with Alberg, it was a lesson learned. He went out guns a-blazing. He went out, I want to get the big highlight reel KO. But keep in mind, this is Israel Adesanya's buddy. So when it didn't work out for him, what's he doing now? Fighting more of an Izzy-style game plan. Confident, cool, calm demeanor, stay to the outside. Don't overrush everything. Let your kickboxing speak volumes. And I think that would be an excellent way of just staying to the outside. Matador Nego Mariano, beating him by decision, plus 300. You could do worse. Following up, hit you with another one. We got Frankie Edgar by decision at plus 300. Again, Frankie Edgar, legendary fighter. One thing you don't have to question is, will he fight for your dollar? It's his last fight. This is everything the guy's ever known. This is everything the guy's ever wanted. World champion at 155. Challenge for the title at 145. Still fought all the best bangers in the game at 135. He will fight for your dollar. You don't have to worry about that. His ability to get takedowns is still there. Coming off his last fight with Chito Vera, close. Could have gone his way had he not got KO'd. Don't get KO'd against Gutierrez. He's not a big knockout guy. He's got the leg kicks. Catch the kick, take him to the ground. Frankie can do it. Meanwhile, Chris Gutierrez has been taken down his last 4 fights. The writing's on the wall. The recipe's there. Frankie Edgar could pull something off. Even at 41 in his last fight, there might be a little bit of magic. And if anybody's going to pull off that fairy tale, I did it. I said this is my last one. I went out there and did the damn thing. It'd be Frankie, right? So sign me up. This card, though, as an honorable mention, Julio Arce by decision, you and I talked about the plus 250, or Montel Jackson plus 330 by KO. That looked good. Wellington Turman, inside the distance, plus 300. Brad Riddell by decision, plus 350. Dan Hooker by TKO. Like, there's a lot of good. Dustin Poirier by TKO. There's a lot of solid props on this card. 14 fights altogether. Don't feel like you need to force anything or rush anything, but do your tape research, see what you like, see what you don't like. And ultimately, there's a couple of these big fat plus 200, plus 300s just sitting there for the taking. We just need a couple of them to come through.
There you guys go. 3 best prop bets for me and Cody, as well as some honorable mentions, which I largely agree with for the most part, right? The Julio Arce via decision, that would be a nice one to cash. But even his money line at plus 170, I think is a solid spot for a lot of people to take advantage of. All right, Cody, I'll give you the platform one last time, my friend. What do you got for the folks? And I'll get us out of here.
Yeah, that's about it. If you want to hit me up because you know specifically that the dude is going to come in, throw a bum ass right kick, favor his knee and topple over and pack it in, hit me up with the inside info, man. I used to be the inside guy. Now it's just, you don't want to be guy bothering people. Hey, man, how you feeling? But it's like, if the guy's got no ACL, hit me up. Chaboy. Chaboy. Why am I not on the right side of the fix? Anyways, I'll leave you with that. Good card, good offering. Enjoy it. However, you decide to watch the card, that's totally up to you. Regardless, though, this is a fight fans fight card. There's going to be a lot of violence. There's going to be a lot of knockouts. There's some high profile fights. And of course, that's why we do the damn thing. So thanks for joining us on Thursday. If you do want to, because yeah, we're gonna have to figure out something. We can't shoot the show next Thursday. Maybe we do a Friday thing if that's cool with you. But again, if you want to come down to the show in Toronto, you're watching the show right now and you're thinking, yo, let's go watch some live MMA. It's a dope card. Love to see you in person. I'll hook you up for free. Yeah, just get in touch with Manpreet. I'll throw you in the general admission side. Gonna be a good time. And Caveman Sam, Trailer Park Boys, in a hot dog eating contest. Greasy. So you know me, MMA, greasy, goes hand in hand. And until then, I'll catch you next time. Thanks for having me on the show as always, brother.
Yes, sir. I can't wait to see the caveman again. That was one of my favorite guys to work with of all time when we did the whole substance cage combat thing. But yes, please do hit me up or Cody up in regards to hitting up the show next week. I'll definitely 90% I will be there. So I'm hoping to see some fist fighting there. And yes, I'm totally fine with moving the show to Friday given the circumstances around next Thursday. So there you guys go. Just letting you guys know right off the rip that next week's show, which is the last event in this 6-event stretch of the UFC run of consecutive weekends. We'll be doing it next Friday, so keep you guys eyes peeled for that one. All right. On behalf of myself and Cody, we appreciate you guys hanging with us on this Thursday evening. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Good luck on all your bets. Hopefully, we get a fun card, a banger card to take us into the last card of this consecutive run, like I said. And then maybe we'll see Derek Lewis decapitate a man next weekend. Who knows? But you'll have to tune in to find out. All right. Love you guys. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.